Greetings and salutations, everyone. You'll have to give me a minute while I readjust my big head here. It won't let me. Give me the... Give. Just give. That's all I'm asking. Isn't technology wonderful? That's one of my favorite quotes. To err is human. To really fuck things up, you need a computer. Right?
I guess. I've never really been all that great with computers in the first place. I've always considered myself a walking, talking EMP grenade.
Yeah. Welcome to the Luddite Show. With your hosts, Alex and Rick.
We don't know how computers work, but they're like kind of our only life right now.
Today we'll teach you how to not hit your computer with a rock when it doesn't work. Right?
You can once or twice, provided it's the tower.
Yeah, and it's a small rock.
It's a small rock, if it makes you feel better. But that is not going to fix it.
All right, everyone. Here's the official intro. Alright, from the Brewchi's room on the dark side of the moon, I am the Loophole King, and you are watching DMs After Dark, which is basically Alex and I discussing everything under the sun about being a dungeon master in D&D. So, a few quick announcements. As of Sunday night, we hit affiliate status. Yay! Good for us. We have 3 subscribers already, which is good for us. I picked up the small block of D&D minis today from Comic Book World, our sponsor, Comic Book World at comicbookworld.com. Please make sure you check them out. Nightbot will remind you to go to their store probably every 10 to 15 minutes. So please do so for all your gaming needs. They ship inside the contiguous U.S., and if you're nice to them and your order is large enough, they may consider shipping outside of the U.S. at this time. We also have a... I will be doing another giveaway when we hit 50 subscribers. The gift is yet to be determined. Mark over at Comic Book World is trying to decide what is financially reasonable for him to give away, but he wants to give away something pretty big. So he's doing the math on that. As a business owner, he's doing the math on how big he can make it. And we are doing a joint... we are going to be joining DM the Mark Knight over at DM the Mark Knight at twitch.com for his charity stream on the 15th of August. And all the money donated.
Which is going to be an absolutely insane event, because it's just going to be a bunch of people getting their D&D groups together and just deciding to fight in a tournament. It's like it's going to be an anime arc, is what it's going to be.
It is. It is.
It's going to be it's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be insane, and it's I don't know how this is going to go. This is going to be silly. I feel like we should have come up with a better idea, because this is going to be absolute nonsense.
Well, here's the thing. I see this as like a really, really weird version of Mortal Kombat. It has begun. Choose your destiny. Fight.
I guess, but like, what? It's not like there's any like real competition to it. Like, not 5e anyway. I mean, no. It's a lot of it is just based off of like, oh, who do the dice favor?
Yeah, there's. Well, I mean, that's in anything. I have always told people that I would rather be really, really lucky than really, really good any day of the week. Because you don't have to count on luck, but if your skill set sucks all the time, you're pretty much hosed regardless. Like, you only need to get lucky one time for it to all work out for you. So, also don't forget to please donate. Check us out at Patreon, patreon.com. Lundy, go ahead and give your spiel.
I'm McLundy. I play in 2 of DM the Mark Gut Knights games on Tuesday. It's going to be Tuesday afternoons and Wednesday afternoons starting next week, starting at 1 or 1:30, respectively. And I also play in Loophole Sunday game at 5:30 EST. I also run my own games on Monday nights at 7 EST and Thursday nights at 7 EST on Twitch TV/Tabor Snapping and Twitch TV/RNA, respectively. That's God, Ghouls, and Grims and role-playing D-Bags. I use the Foundry app, which I have found to be incredibly useful and way better than Roll20. I will be streaming tomorrow my prep for my Thursday game on Foundry, in case you want to take a look and see what that looks like as far as Foundry is concerned.
I highly recommend taking a look at Foundry. I am going to be making the change soon. So
a lot of it's very intuitive. Like I said in the beginning of this, I don't know computers worth a goddamn. I'm very bad at technology and using new stuff. But Foundry is just super easy to just figure out, honestly.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff you'll figure out like accidentally, and you'll be like, "Oh, that's cool." Like finding out that apparently speech bubbles appear above characters if you like have that character selected and type something in the chat. It like zooms in on that character, and you get a speech bubble of what they said. That's ridiculously funny to me.
Well, I think that's better for the viewer, to be honest, because like in a lot of games, like our Sunday night game, where 2 or 3 players are interacting with the DM in voice, and then while somebody's having a conversation, you have to pay attention to the little chat scroll on the side in Roll20. With that, you can it'll just zoom to each character saying the thing, and they can see it on the screen while other stuff is going on. And
yeah, they don't need to type /me. They don't need to emote stuff. You can just say stuff, and it looks like your character is saying whatever it is that you're saying.
Yeah.
So super nice, super neat. I enjoy using Foundry for a lot of stuff. Even if you're somebody who's not comfortable like making your own worlds or anything like that, it's got all the add-ons. It's got all of the modules. You can get anything you want on there. God, it's so good. It only costs $50, and that's just for the GM. Your players don't pay shit. So it's so good. I can't recommend it enough. The only problem I had with it is figuring out how to get it so that people could join, because it uses your IP address.
Yeah.
So if you don't know how to screw around with your router, then you might have a little bit of a problem with it. But so long as you can get that figured out, then you're fine.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the instructions to make it work are much easier than the instructions to make Roll20 work.
For sure.
Yeah.
You can find YouTube videos that are like 5 minutes long showing you how to do it.
Yeah. That my issue with Roll20 is it requires way too much coding, which is already a huge investment on me.
Yeah. Oh, Foundry, by the way, is a single-person project. One dude made it. Just one dude.
Oh, hey, Diz.
Think about that for a second. Who's here?
Dr. Diz.
Oh, hey, Dr. Diz.
You there, buddy?
I guess not.
Yes, we get some things that, technical difficulties are, if I don't have a stream with a technical difficulty, I just don't feel like I'm having a stream at the time. You know what I mean? Like at this point, it's just like, whatever.
Even if you don't touch anything, it just doesn't work the next time for some reason. It worked perfectly fine the first time, and then you don't touch anything. You restart it the next time, and then all of a sudden there's issues.
Well, like your microphone yesterday. Like, it was goofy in the beginning of the stream before we started doing anything. Then the whole time we played, it was fine. And then when we did the ending, it just went out for no
The
reason.
microphone was screwed up when I was trying to stream today. Not during the game, but like after I got done with the game and I wanted to do my own individual stream, I turned that on. Didn't change a single setting from the last time I streamed, but for some reason it sounded like I was in a bathroom singing opera. And I didn't know how to fix it. I was like, "What the fuck is going on with my microphone?"
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it doesn't. Sorry, I'm trying to find out where Diz went.
All right. Welcome back, Dr. Diz. Can we hear you this time? That's the question. Probably not. Not at this rate.
Diz, my man.
Hey.
Oh, there he is. Look at that. How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good.
Yeah, we were just discussing Foundry. If you want to give introduce yourself and give a quick shout out real quick.
Oh yeah. Turn my camera on, I guess. I'm Dr. Diz _DM. I run a couple of games. I try to alternate weeks. 1 week I'll run one on Friday. Next week I'll run one on Saturday. So it just kind of alternates from week to week. This week is a Friday week, and the name of the campaign this week is called Not Actually Heroes, and it's more of a darker campaign. It's not so dark at first, but as it progresses, I've warned the players that it will get progressively darker. So,
do you plan
to be my anger coming out as a DM?
do you sort of like plan out like the level of darkness that your campaign's going to have ahead of time, or do you talk with your players and be like, so what are you comfortable with? Because like I have a lot planned. I can hold off on some stuff if there's like something that like is really bad and you don't really want to delve into it. Like children being murdered, is that something that you're cool with?
Yeah,
because it's gonna happen.
I tested the water with that one a little bit. They went into a cave, and this intelligent kobold was in there. He could speak, very eloquently, and was trying to kind of join up with them, kind of trade services for services. But they didn't want to have anything to do with that. Of course, they wanted to kill everything inside. But they came across a hatchery on the way through, and as they went back into the cave after he had escaped, but they killed off everything else. As they went back through the hatchery, I described how there was liquid coming out from under the door, and when they opened the hatchery, it had what they assume is the kobold that had escaped, the intelligent one, had crushed most of the eggs himself. So it's a little dark. It's it's using monsters to do it at first here, but it is that's a little dark. So I was just testing the waters. They seem to handle it okay.
It's easier to compartmentalize when they're like monsters.
Yeah.
Like I can see destroying the eggs of like a bunch of grubs or things like that. That's not something that I mind too much. But like once you get into so you enter town and you find out that this town is currently in the middle of a raid, and there's about like 10 children that are all lined up next to the local temple. All of their hands have been cut off.
Yeah. Yeah.
You start getting into that, and you got players going.
Watch their eyes just widen. Like, better dial it back just a little bit.
I think it's okay sometimes to inflict horror on your party for. I mean, look, if the parties didn't enjoy horror, like as a whole, the D&D community didn't enjoy horror, Ravenloft would not still be a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that would have died out because the player base just wasn't,
Sure, but a lot of people, and it depends on the DM who's running the Ravenloft game. Because I've had DMs who run Ravenloft less like a horror game and more just like a sort of a slightly dark fantasy kind of game.
Yeah.
where really there's only maybe like 2 NPCs that have like something tragic happen to them, and you just got to figure that out. That's so it kind of depends. Everybody's got a certain threshold that they go with, and I think it differs very slightly for a lot of people. And figuring out that line's kind of hard. That's why I just go with my, like, every time I do a session 0, I just go with my sliding scale where I'm like, all right, you got 1 to 10. 1 is fucking sunshine and rainbows and happy, fun, fluffy bunnies. 10 is I'm gonna fuck you up psychologically. So which of the between 1 and 10, which do you like? Where do you want to go? Because if you choose 10, I'm not holding back. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, we're just gonna have at it and see where everything goes, right?
There's gonna be a lot of realistic medieval pains that you're gonna be looking at.
This is my first venture down this road, so I have had like dark elements in campaigns, but not the entire campaign. Being kind of somber, and I kind of have an idea where I want it to go in the ending, and it just gets worse and worse. So.
As far as what a Fluffy Bunny campaign would look like, Thorium, essentially it would be something very family friendly, something that I could see a 7-year-old playing, where that there are some nasty orcs out there, and they're trying to do some nasty stuff. They're trying to steal from people. Somebody you see some orcs come by and they go, "We're gonna take your stuff," and the locals are like, "We don't want you to take your stuff." And then you come in, and then you just bob them in the head, and then they cry and run away. That's a Fluffy Bunny campaign.
It's the amount of detail that you put into it, right? You could describe the orcs, what gruesome things they're doing, and it becomes very dark. Or you can just say, "Oh, they're really bad guys," and then it's kind of lighter,
Yeah, the amount of detail you put into your descriptions matters. The exact detail of the actions that they're taking matters. Because if it's an orc that's just kind of standing there with his arms crossed, going, "Man, give me your money," that's not near as frightening as all right, so there's a giant creature, probably about 3 heads taller than the tallest man that you can see. He is standing in front of the village elder, and he has drool coming down his massive jowls, giant spiky teeth erupting forward, and you can see bloodlust in his eyes. He has a scimitar out, and he has it to the throat of your village elder, and he is cutting in deeply, blood starting to trickle from his neck as he says, "I want everything of value in this village. What do you do?" That's,
I think it could be both of those. It could be less detail or just different details. It could be either,
Yeah. And so you just gotta figure out what they're cool with, and normally all that stuff you kind of just get over when it comes at a session 0. As you DM more and more games, you just start to get a feel for all the things that you really should ask questions for. One of the first things that I started to realize I should ask questions for is whether or not the party is cool with PvP, because I have a strict rule on that, and that's if not everybody in the party is cool with it. If there's just one person who's like, "I don't want to do PvP," then there ain't gonna be none. That's how it is, because I'm not dealing with the drama. I'm not dealing with you guys being like, "Oh, come on, why are you fighting me on this?" I'm not dealing with it. I'm not dealing with you guys thinking, "Oh, PvP's allowed. That means I can just screw over my teammates." Y'all are immature about this, and if you're gonna be screwing each other over, then you all have to be okay with that. If you're not, then you can't do it.
Okay, so since we're speaking of that, I want to bring you a adventure. Can you see this?
Widow's Peak.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so this is on DMZ
because I can see it on your stream, but
here, let me.
You can share screen it on your Discord.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it easier for us to see anyway. There we go.
All right, so this is Craven's Cove. Okay, Widow's Peak. This game, I ran this with characters who were level 6 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
This is quite possibly one of the best non-standard adventures I've ever run. I gave it a 5 out of 5, which is hard. As Lindy, you know, it's hard for me to give away a 5, right? For anything.
Yeah, well, you and I both basically rarely give a 5 to anything.
Okay, this is a 5. So the things I want to show you here are the rule set about where to go here. Random encounters. Nothing like a seaside vacant. Craven Cove is a bleak and unforgiving place. Let down your guard, and you might just end up as seafood. In keeping with the ambience of Craven Cove, you should throw in a random encounter whenever the party goes for a stroll through town or casually suggests they want to head outdoors. The party is busy dealing with an important matter. A character heads out to relieve themselves of an evening. The party annoys you. You have a bloodthirsty moment. Okay, so that is the rules for random encounters. And when I say that this terrified my players. This terrified my players to the point they were afraid to they didn't want to leave. Nobody left the group. Like, nobody. Like, they stayed packed tight in military formation the entire campaign, which is about 5.5 months. Right? Because this is kind of an extensive game. The thing I like about this is this has a beginning, middle, and end, except it's sandboxed the whole way. If that makes sense. So there is a start and a finish, but how they get from there to there is up to them. But there's only a limited amount of stuff you can do inside this domain, right? In Ravenloft.
Yeah.
The thing about this one is the individual thing is for stop, give back. The idea behind it is this domain has lost its leader, right? So it is looking for a new dark power to rule it. Will that be the antagonist in the game, in the adventure? Will that be a party member? Or will no one become the Dark Lord of this realm? So this involves madness, it involves corruption, and they earn corruption by doing certain things in each section of the adventure. Like there's a fire elemental. If you set the fire elemental free, get a point of everybody in the game gets a point of corruption. Because you're not supposed to be doing that. But what's a party do? They're going to let it free. Like it's almost always. They let it free and then they have to fight it because it's mad because it's been locked up for like 1,000 years. So but my favorite part about this game is when you get to the stuff that is extraneous for the players. It is not let me get down here to it. It is not the adventure in and of itself, which is pretty bad, right? It's very tough. It is, however, the random encounter tables and the curses. So, Craven Cove is plagued by bad magic. The spell Bestow Curse allows for creative uses for it, and some flexible, flavorful little hexes are suggested below. Now, I only used this chart. I did not create my own because this was enough to freak out my players. Some of the curses bill about Craven Cove as ambient clouds of hate randomly encountered. When you need to curse in a hurry, roll on the table or choose one that suits your needs. So here's a roll. Here's 20 of them. Your left eye goes blind. You grow hideous wart on the side of your nose that has a single hair sticking out of it. Not so bad. Everything smells of herrings. Every attack you make is accompanied by a sad trombone. Wah, wah. Your teeth turn yellow and crooked. Whenever you drop something, it lands at the worst possible angle. You stub your toe whenever you enter or leave a building. You chew horrendously loud no matter how hard you try to eat quietly. Whenever you joke about an object becoming a mimic, it actually turns into one. So this is what caused, that was the longest fight in my game. It took them 3.5 hours because things like that, they don't know that they're cursed until they use the curse, right? So if you're not eating anything, the chewing loudly doesn't bother you, right? So they're walking down the street, and one of the random encounters is a chest, right? It's just a chest. And when you open the chest, a flock of ravens flies out of it. There's nothing else in the chest. It's just magically a flock of ravens just appears and does that, bat thing flying around everybody and then takes off and does no damage. It just freaks them out, right? So there's the mage notices a chest. The rogue goes over to start to pick the lock. And the mage, who is cursed, goes, careful, it might be a mimic. Cool. So now it's a mimic. So they start fighting the mimic. But what else happens in this stupid game is there are also wild magic surges. For those of you that remember the old school wild magic surge. Right?
Yep.
And on here, the list includes... let's see if I can find it here. The list includes things like... you roll on the random encounter... yeah, here we go. Here is the... my computer's being slow and ugly. Craven Wild Magic. So there's no chart for when you're supposed to roll for this. So I designed a system of every time an arcane caster casts a spell, there is a 5% chance of rolling on the table. And it was cumulative, right? So it was 5% for every arcane spell that wasn't a cantrip, and then another 1% for divine magic, because it's not quite as powerful, right? So, and that was cumulative until I got a roll that resulted in a wild magic surge, and then I reset. So that was the way I kept track as a DM on how to, because there's no set standard. I was like, well, how do I make it seem so, because and make it seem random, because, you get a 5% chance you can roll 1 in the first spell they cast, they get a random account, they get a wild surge. Or they could cast 6 or 7 spells in a row, and I just keep rolling 88, 89, 90, 88, 89, 90, until the card goes Cure Wounds, and then this happens. You and all creatures within 10 feet of you gain vulnerability to radiant damage for 1 minute. A water elemental controlled by the DM. So when they're fighting the mimic, first spell he casts Firebolt, and bam, water elemental appears within 5 feet of him, of the mage, and attacks. And then the card tried to heal the rogue and got a air elemental. So, yeah, and your players are like, the random encounter thing is, anytime they leave a building, you roll on the random encounter chart. And some of them are, you see a rock, right? Or you see something. Or it's a giant crab. They spent 4 days in the same building because every time they tried to leave, they got a random encounter, and they were just terrified to leave the house, right? They couldn't investigate it. They wouldn't investigate anything because they were like, oh, that was a huge, stupid fight. Because something would happen, and then one of them would wander off to go do something else, and they would get into a random encounter, and the rest of the party had to go over and save them. And then they learned really quick. So now my players are at that, so after about the first 2 or 3 sessions, your players are terrified to open a door. They're terrified to leave a building if they go into the building. They're like, they suspect everybody in the town's motives. They suspect is that really a tree? Is that just a tree? Like, you tell them that, like, you can add any kind of flavor you want. Like, they're walking down the road. You see a shiny rock, a glowing rock on the side of the road. They'll stop and spend 20 minutes trying to figure out how to get close enough to it so it doesn't kill them. And it is...
One of the problems I have with this is that if that's the experience the players are looking for, that's fine at all.
Yeah.
I feel like that can ruin them for other games, though, games that aren't meant to be that way, especially games with a little bit more intrigue.
Right.
But it's because part of the point of those games is you're supposed to give a little to get a little, and if you kind of like have them play this, where they're kind of like now trained to believe that everything and everybody is trying to kill them in one way or another, or like do something terrible to them, then you can't really get into the fun stuff when it comes to an intrigue game, because, well, I need them to at least trust these few different types of NPCs so that we can get things rolling, and then they're like, no, I don't trust any of them.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going anywhere near them if I don't have to. It's like, all right, well, then we're not going to get anywhere.
Well, what I did was I started them. I started them at 5th. Since this is like 5th through 7th, so I started them at 5th level through this. And what I did was I used it to further the. So I took over, because part of my problem was I took over the campaign in the middle of a campaign, right? because the original DM didn't have the time anymore because of his job, and since I'm retired, I have all the time in the world. And I was like, what is a good way for me to exit his campaign world and enter my campaign world? Oh, well, we'll just shunt them into Ravenloft, run a little Ravenloft adventure, and then shunt them back out at the end of the adventure, right? This was actually, my players said they had more fun doing this because this was the most fun they played in years because of because the mages get to be, the mage and the cleric are like, I could heal you, but I might get a water elemental or cast fireball. So you'll just have to suck it up there, Buttercup. You got 3 hit points, don't get hit, move to the back. Right? Like, it's just, and it altered the way, because they were one of those groups that just wanted to charge in, slaughter everything, and then run out. Right? And I was like, oh, this will definitely, pump the brakes on that kind of kick open the door, lob in a fireball, try to kill everything. But it's actually more fun as a DM and a player because I found that it challenged them in the way they think about combat and interactions as a normal playing group. Because I've got guys in my group that have been playing for as long as I have, right? And you get a kind of you get players that get in that kind of rut where it's like, oh, cool, here we're going into the dungeon, yay! Kick open a check for traps. Oh, look, there's not trapped. We'll open the door. What's in the room? And you just kind of fall into that little rut kind of thing, and then you throw something like this at them where there's no doors, like there's like 4 or 5 spots. If they don't plan ahead, and then you get the mage trying to figure out how to participate in combat without actually having to blow any of his first level spells or his third level spells. He's like, is this one of those times where I really got to use it? Well, yes, because the giant crab has both your ranger and your barbarian.
I already basically caused that to happen through the gritty realism rest variant rules. Where like a night is a short rest and a week is a long rest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you institute that, you already got them being like, all right, I cannot just like waste shit because things can happen every day, and I need to be very careful because I don't have that. A long rest is hard to come by. So, I personally, I think there's a lot of ways in which you can institute that sort of sense of needing to be preservative about your resources. Or just a sense of like caution in general, or not thinking that you can just take on anything that you see. There's a lot of ways in which you can do that. I think that like this sort of like a campaign is fine for like.
Well, it's not a campaign. It's an adventure.
Well, adventure.
Yeah.
Regardless, I consider adventures to be like mini campaigns.
Right.
But because you could technically just have the campaign just be that adventure if you wanted to. So those sorts of things, I think it's fine for people who are like, I want to have something that scares the shit out of me and makes me think that I'm going to die at any moment. Sure, you can do it that way if you'd like. Personally, not a game that I would probably play in. I don't mind the idea that like my guy could die at any time. That's fine. I kind of always expect that regardless, which is why I always have backup characters every time I play. Especially since I kind of like enjoy doing dumb stuff just for the cool factor.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I know that we're 500 feet up on a volcano and there's a flying red feral dragon below us. Can I jump on its back? You can. You're gonna die though. I'm thinking about it.
Maybe.
I'm heavily considering it.
What I found was it for my group, because like I said, I have players that have played for a long time, and I've also got some newer players that haven't been playing for more than a year. Oh.
Nope. Lost him.
You disappeared.
Well, Jesus Christ.
As we were just discussing, you literally didn't touch anything.
Nope. You can see both of my hands the whole time it happened.
I know, that's welcome. Like I said, to error is human. To really things up, you need a computer. But what I found is
I run across the paranoia too. But I just introduced a character into the party and who betrayed them, and then they never trusted me ever again. Just one time.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
you instituted a whole like adventure where it built mistrust.
Where
But
it's literally just don't trust anything that I do because it's going to kill you.
Well, it wasn't just that. Because a lot of those curses don't kill you. Like one of the curses is you can't remember you remember everybody's first name.
Nah, all the curses are like deleterious. Though.
Yeah.
Like
there's but like my mage went through 4 or 5 sessions with 9 hit points because they got attacked by a vampiric mist and it drained his hit point maximum, right? And then because he had one of these other curses that he couldn't get a good night's rest, so you can't get your hit points back because that's the requirement is getting a full 8 hours of rest. But he couldn't do that because he would every time he would fall asleep, every couple of hours he would wake up with a nightmare and hear screaming and people running down the halls and stuff. But my players took it. My newer players took it, and I think it really helped them in the role playing aspect because there was a lot of stuff that's just not combat, right? It's just like the barbarian's left foot is 15 inches bigger than his right foot, so he has half moving. So he has 10 feet less walking speed. The paladin in the group couldn't remember anybody's name. He's like, I know like they knew them, but you just can't remember their name. And then he chewed loudly when they ate, and it was all those little role playing things that, like, I thought it really helped my newer players delve into that role playing thing because it was these quirks they would never pick for themselves, right? And everybody's like we had just left an adventure where our DM and I kept the same stuff that he had already done. And the adventure was there were these 3 different colored fruits in a fruit basket, and whichever one you touched, you were either yellow, blue, or red. So, and it's you and all your stuff. And until a remove curses cast, you're like that. But if you touch something else while you're colored, you can change the color, right? So I had 3 of them that were blue, 3 of them that were red, and 1 green guy, right? So they're doing all this, and then they get these other curses. So now you're blue. You chew loudly when you talk. Your foot is big, right? So,
so there's a lot of similar things that are instituted in other systems. I know Champions does this. I know Shadowrun does this. Cyberpunk does this, if I remember correctly. Fuck the Buffy and Angel TTRPGs fucking do it too. It's this idea of giving you benefits, or at least the potential for benefits, by taking drawbacks. Now, those are kind of hard to balance because you want to do drawbacks in such a sense that no matter what fucking option you take, it's not going to be good for you.
Right.
Like, obviously, in Pathfinder, for instance, there were drawbacks like you got blurry vision at long range, so your ranged attacks are made at a -2 or something like that. Yeah. It's like, all right, well, I'm a melee fighter, so that's not going to affect me at all.
Oh yeah.
So
D&D did that. D&D did that with the Skills and Powers book in 2nd edition, and they had it in 3.5 as well. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's where Pathfinder got it from.
Yeah,
it derived it from.
And like you said, I took them all the time because there's no drawback. Like if I'm playing a barbarian, I'm never using a bow, so having a -4 having a -2 on range attacks doesn't bother me. But I get to pick up cleave, so okay.
The thing is that there's a lot of them there. So in order to make it work, I think that in order to make it so that no matter what you pick, it's not going to be great, they all have to impact your role play.
Right.
And in a negative sense. Like, for instance, say I take the drawback that I have someone that I love, right? Which essentially means, like, every time I think something happens that makes me fucking remember them, I have to fucking start gushing and annoying the fuck out of everybody. B, if they're ever in danger, I don't give a shit what's going on with everybody else. That's my main priority. I'm going there. You guys, I'm sorry, but like I heard that something might be happening, and that's more important than the orc invasion that we're dealing with at the current keep. So I'm gonna abandon you guys, and I'm gonna go.
Well, see, I think I would do, like, if you did that, I would do that, like, not trying to step on any, but a certain space TV show with a small little green person. that is someone I love. That's what I would do to you. Is I would have you have a small child, something like that you have to carry around, and like that. You're like, oh, so you picked that flaw. Well, here's your like. I think that's a DM's responsibility to make those not game breaking, but
make them affect you. Yeah. And I think that having because the thing is you can also make those interesting too.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite instances of this is Shadowrun's version of the amnesia drawback, where there's two versions. The first version, you don't get as much in return, but essentially you only remember the last year of your life. Everything before that, I don't fucking know. And then the second one, you don't get to make your character. I do, as the DM. I will give you your character, and when game starts, you wake up going, what the fuck happened to me, and who am I? That is the second one, and I love that one. That one's amazing.
That is actually... So, could you do that in D&D?
I think you could. I think you could easily do that. You'd have to also have something to give them as a result of it, right? For instance, you can homebrew a whole bunch of stuff together, whatever it is.
Right.
I made an amnesiac character for Shadowrun once, and he was... I gave him my DM. I'm like, here's what you go ahead and make my character. And they're like, is there any sort of like thing that you'd like to go for? I'm like... I'd like to be magical, if I may. That's just what I want to do. And he's like, all right, I'll cut you some slack. You're doing this. This is giving me a lot of responsibility. So he makes me magical. Find out about like 10, 11 sessions in, he was a part of an experiment to try and make it so that what could traditionally done with magic people, what could traditionally not be done with magic people could be done with them. So in Shadowrun, for instance, when you're magical, you can't have cybernetics or anything like that.
Right.
You just can't. It takes away from your magic to do so. So he was a part of an experiment to give him some sort of cybernetic enhancement while still maintaining his magic. So I just find out over time that I have X, Y, and Z in my body, and it's not affecting my magic at all as a result of the experiments that were done on me. I don't know what those things do. I don't know exactly what the benefits are. They might not even be beneficial at all, but there's something there.
So how would
those are things that you could do.
So theory crafting on that. How would you relate? So do you just give the players? So I'm thinking about how to give the players the reveal on what their character class and things are. So if you start them at first level, do you just hand them a first level fighter and say, here's your first level fighter, play a fighter? Or do you say, here's your stat block, try things out?
Yeah, that's what I would do. Stat block, try things out, see what you can do.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, an experienced player will be like, well, I know what all the different level 1 features are. Let me give it a go. And they might base it off of whatever their stat block is. Like, well, I have a high strength and I have a high con. Maybe I'm a barbarian or maybe I'm a fighter. So I'll try those things first. Can I do second wind? I try to do a second wind. No, you can't do a second wind. All right. I'm not a... They might do stuff like that.
But you could get them to do. Well, explain second wind to me. What do you mean by second wind?
You have to be like, oh, how do you mean? Like, what do you mean? What are you trying to do, and how do you think that you know how you can do it?
Yeah,
that's something that you could do. So, like, in my opinion, a lot of this would be found out in like moments that they barely even notice. Mostly as a result of the fact that they're too focused on something else, like they're in the middle of something crazy going on, and they just find out that they can do a thing, but they didn't really know that they could do. You activate it yourself first when you think it is relevant. Like you made them a barbarian, but they don't know they're a barbarian, so. They spend a decent amount of time in the campaign just playing normally, and then eventually they get into a big ass fight with like one of their teammates about something. They get into a huge ass argument where it actually like pisses them off, and you're like, all right. You feel an immense rage come across you, and you feel an intense desire to punch him in the face as hard as you can. and then they just do, and then you're like, your punch hurts a lot harder than you thought it would.
Yeah.
And then they try to hit you back, and it's like it just doesn't hurt as much as you thought. Like this guy doesn't hit for shit.
Yeah. So my other thought is can you run a whole campaign like that, and how far would it? So that's so that would be a story hook for the beginning of the campaign, right? Because after that, it would be more of finding out how they got there, why did they find themselves in situation X, where.
And
The last time I saw,
if you level them up as the DM, then it could be a continuous thing throughout the campaign.
yeah, you don't necessarily have to give them like every level. You could level them however you want. Well, the last time I saw somebody do something like this, as far as D&D was concerned, is they had woken up not knowing what was going on, but the DM essentially knew what was going on, and what was going on is that they got sold to some cultists by their parents to pay off a debt, and the cultists basically prepped the dude to be sacrificed to their god. And the dude had no idea, but part of that preparation gave him a bunch of tattoos that essentially enhanced his abilities to a level that was more than your average person. Now, he didn't know how to use these tattoos or how they worked or what exactly it is that they enhanced, but that's what they did, and eventually the DM would just activate them whenever they thought necessary or appropriate, and then he'd just be able to do shit they know that he could do. Now, this took a lot of over a period of time, a lot of research. The wizard and the paladin and such, they were able to like figure out at least a little bit of what these tattoos meant and what they were able to do. And then once they were able to start figuring that stuff out, the DM is like, okay, you're going to start getting flashes of like things that have happened to you. And you just get a flash of like a bunch of people just carving these things into you and then like healing them over to make them tattoos as opposed to like giant gash wounds, things like that. Like whatever it is, you just get these images in your head, and then over time, these images started to form a cohesive picture where he's like, I had parents, they sold me to some cultists, the cultists did this to me. I still don't know why. And then he went to bed one day, and then the god that he was going to be sacrificed to, like, came to him in his dreams, and they're like, hey, how you doing? I'd just like to let you know that you have been promised to me. Now, I'm not really a huge fan of the way that my guys did it. I mean, buying a kid, now that's a pussy move, in my opinion. So I'll give you a shot. I'll give you something here. If you go kill these guys and sacrifice them to me instead, I'll let you just keep doing what you're doing, and you can even keep those little tattoos. I'll even tell you what they do. Which presented an interesting point for him. But he also had to kill his parents for selling him as well. So
Yeah.
became a little bit of a moral quandary. It's just like, do I kill them for selling me to some cultists? Because I don't even know the context. Did they know what the cultists were gonna do, or did they just go, well? It became.
I think to be honest, I think that would be a good test case to try with an entire party.
Yeah, I think you could do that with an entire part. I don't think you'd have to have a whole lot of people who'd be willing to buy into the concept that they're not making their characters, which would be kind of a difficult sell, I think.
I find a lot of players like to do character building.
Character building is a big part of D&D.
Some players, that's all it's about for them. They love building the character.
Oh yeah,
backstories are fun as hell. Sometimes I'll spend so much time writing a backstory, I'll have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pages of backstory.
Oh yeah,
just for a character that I've been thinking about for a while. So it would be fun to do. But you'd have to find somebody who'd be interested in doing it. And finding a whole party that'd be interested in doing it, I don't think you'd be able to manage that one.
Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted. You heard it here first. Yeah, I'm gonna try it. I think that, like we said when we started all this, that this is for DMs to get good ideas. And I think honestly that thinking about that because I have a campaign that I've started testing with my Saturday night groups, my every other Saturday night group. and they bought into the premise, they bought into the world, they bought into everything, and I have been struggling to figure out a good way to start it, and I think this is actually a great way. This is actually perfect for the campaign. And
Well, feel free to use it and tell me how it works out for you.
well, if I do it, I'm going to do it on stream. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there and see how.
Fair enough.
You know, like I'm just going to because I think that's something that I because like you said, a lot of players love making their characters, and I do as well. But is there this? Would there be this? You would have to find players who are invested in their characters because they want to find out who they are, right? Like, who am I really?
A lot of that, honestly, would be on you as the DM
Yeah.
to give them motivation to figure that out. Because otherwise, you run into the risk of them being like, "I don't even care who I was. I'll figure out what I am now." That's
Right.
the only thing that matters to me now. So
Cool
that's
as well, because if they abandon that, trying to find their past could come back and haunt them.
Yeah.
Sneak up on them and really get them. If they're not paying attention. So
yeah. All of a sudden,
their backstory.
they're in the middle of a city. They've been traveling for probably about like 3 months now, and they feel pretty good about themselves. They're like, "Yeah, I've got a new identity. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to move forward." And then all of a sudden, they get like ambushed by a bunch of
Yeah.
They get arrested. Like the guards just walk up and arrest them over
the
the
guards
party.
just arrest them and stuff, and they're just like, "What did I do?" So you know exactly what you did. Actually, you'd be surprised.
Yes. Wait. It wasn't me. No, it was totally you. I have a picture. Right. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good, and I honestly think there's a lot of good role play incentive there, because I think it gives the players some freedom instead of being like, okay, I'm a fighter, I have to act this way. You can be the person that doesn't want to run into combat and then still be the fighter. Like,
It's a double-edged sword, though, because I feel like a lot of people benefit from being able to write an extensive backstory about themselves to draw motivation and character. I've got a player that plays in both my Monday and my Thursday game, and if he needs external motivation provided from me in
Right.
order to get interested in his own character. And
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a fault of his, that's just his personality type and just the way in which he gets into games. So I need to provide him something for him to work towards in order for him to actually want to do something for his own character. I can't just give a meta plot where there's like, yeah, there's a BBEG, they need to be stopped or otherwise everything's gonna die. He's like, yeah, but what about me though?
yeah.
Like he needs external motivation for his particular.
Oh, you know what? I think I just thought of a solution for that. You tell the players to write a background, not make their character, but write a background for a character and submit them. Like, because especially since we're doing all this online at the moment, the characters would write a background and submit them in secret, and then you apply the background to a character, but
you mix and match them.
Yeah.
You put each one to a different character.
Yeah.
You have to have an even amount of players for that, otherwise
Yeah.
somebody's getting.
Yeah, you have to have an even amount of players for that. But I think that might even be because the other players would start to recognize, that's the background that I made, right? So you would give the other players, because I think that might invest the other players into helping each other find out what they are, because they want to know which one.
Sorry, I'm doing the math in my head. I'm stupid. Why did I say you need an even amount of players to do that? You don't need. No, that's you just need more than two. You just
Yes.
need more than two. What
You
am I
need more
doing?
than two.
I'm fucking dumb.
It's late. You've had a rough day. So what do you think about that, Diz? You think that would work? You think having them write a character backstory and then applying it to a character that's not theirs?
yeah. Well, for my campaigns, it wouldn't work because when I have my players, at least the ones I've played with in the past here, write backstories, they don't come back with anything. I mean, some of them do, but a lot of times I have to write a backstory in and be like, yeah, all right, here's your backstory,
Yeah, I get the
half elf ranger, or I'm a You know,
I've got a dude in my Thursday game. My dude in my Thursday game, he wrote a rich ass backstory for me. He even gave me like a list of NPCs that he's been associated with in the past, and times and dates in which he knew them, what their current whereabouts are, if it's known. Current whereabouts unknown for this particular individual. This person was last seen doing like he went off on giving me something nice and detailed to work with. So he was great. Everybody else though, they were like, "My parents are dead." All right, like all right. Well, that's. My
parents are dead. I grew up in a monastery. Let's go. Right?
Why are their parents always dead?
I don't know. because it. To be honest, I think it's a Batman thing. It's kind of like a Batman Spider-Man thing. Like I
don't think it's that deep.
I think culturally, for a lot of those of us who are at this age, I think it is. That superhero mentality, that superhero thing we got from comic books where tragedy breeds heroes, right?
I think it's something a lot more simple than that. I think it's just that they don't want anything tying them down.
Yeah,
I think that's the only reason.
Really?
It's like I just don't want anything just coming back being like, oh, by the way, I exist. They just don't want that. I think that's the main reason because they feel like it's an added responsibility that they don't want to have going forward in the game. They just want to be their own person, not deal with parents or like fucking like siblings or anything like that. Just leave me alone. Let me do my own thing.
Okay, so Thorium, you're listening intently. Would you be willing, as a player, to write a backstory for a character that wasn't yours and play a character that you didn't know, that you didn't make? Would you be willing to do that as a player? Do you think that's something that players would buy into? Yeah, took him 3 seconds to write yes.
I'm not saying you wouldn't find anybody who'd be willing to do that. I'm just saying that like you need to find some they need to know the DM, they need to trust the DM, they need to be like, you know what your shit, you know how to make this fun, I trust you completely, you'll be able to do this. That's one thing. So they have to be players that already know you, or at the very least, like absolute daredevil players who are just like, I don't give a crap, just give me something fun to do, man. And they'll be into it. But finding an entire party of people who would all be willing to just do that shit, I think would be very hard to do.
I don't know. Like
I play with one guy, and in like newer campaigns that I've been doing, I've been pushing like some of the guys who play with me all the time to do different classes. Try different things. They've been a caster for all the time. So why don't you be a rogue? Be more close range. Stabby. And I don't know if they really like that or not. Just pushing them in that direction. So it would really have to be a certain person. Because myself, I really like to build that backstory, and I like to invest in the character. I don't, if its character dies, whatever, it happens. I just get to build a new one, but I really like that aspect of it. So it would have to be some people that really just like to, gamble with stuff, I guess.
I mean, just for me, I mean, just look at my character for the Wednesday campaign, Kolok. I mean, he comes off as just like a random Dragonborn barbarian dude who just likes violence. But I have a fucking detailed backstory going back to the beginning of his parents' backstory as to why he exists, why he can do the things that he does, why he is where he is. Like, I've got a shit ton of stuff written up for him.
Right.
I got a bunch of siblings that I've already like thought out NPC sheets for. I made an NPC sheet for Vasir's brother for the Tuesday campaign. Also, I think your stream went down. I think your stream went down. I'm not sure. Let me double check. I'm refreshing. Never mind. And I'm literally making new character applications for all of my family members for the Sunday game. So
yes,
I'm super into doing that stuff. So I like, it's not that I wouldn't be willing to do it as an experiment, maybe for like a one shot, but like in order to make that work, it'd need to be a little bit more long term. I think, to make it more interesting. And I really just wouldn't be down for that personally, because I just love knowing my characters before I go into it. I think I'm similar in the sense that I need to have an internal motivation to do something, and having it written ahead of time is super helpful for me to be able to do that. So I like having like different characters in my past that I can bounce off of to justify the reasons I am the way that I am.
Right.
So I've got some like players in my campaign that really enjoy writing the backstories, and they'll write detailed backstories. And what I would think you would have to make sure all the players are comfortable playing different genders, because I mean they could write a backstory and the character's female, or maybe they have a different sexual preference or something like that. The players would have to be very comfortable with themselves and open to role play these things. Because some players aren't.
Tangential point. I saw on Twitter somebody say something that made me laugh my ass off. They said it's not a D&D game unless at least one of your players or the DM is using it as an excuse to work through their own gender identity issues. And I laugh because that actually has happened to me twice.
Really?
Where I'll have a group of players, and either by midway through or by the end of the campaign, one of them will be like, all right, guys, so I found out that I'm trans, and I'm like, oh, okay. That explains some stuff, I guess.
D&D is therapy, right?
Yeah.
So, to be fair, both times the players were completely supportive, so it's not like it was a bad thing. But it was funny to me that because I feel like it does happen weirdly often. It doesn't happen with every game, obviously, and there's some places where...
Well, I think, like you said, it's like I personally have used D&D for therapy for years, decades. And I think that Dungeons and Dragons, I think the role-playing community as a whole, I don't want to exclude other role-playing specifically. I think role-playing games in and of themselves lend themselves to the ability to be who you really want to be at times, which is a very good outlet for people who are struggling with that kind of identity crisis. And finding a group that is supportive is paramount. And once they do that, they feel more comfortable in the real world as themselves. And that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Actually, I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine. One of my friends who I used to play with a lot, she never wrote backstories for the longest time. She just thought, I'm just going to live in the moment. Just whatever comes to mind. I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to rely entirely on improv. But the moment that she started writing detailed backstories for her own characters, she got way more into them and got really into the process too. Like collaborating with the other characters and the DM being like, so if I make this country that my character's from, can that country exist in your world, or do I have to work on another country? Because basically I'm just linking to the country having this particular socio-political situation going on, and it's probably at war with another country at the moment, which also explains the reason why this is happening. And this is all relevant to my backstory because of X, Y, and Z. Like, she just loves doing that now, and it helps her really get into it.
Yeah.
On a level that she never really got into it when I was playing with her. So it's, for some people, I would say for most people, writing an in-depth backstory, like really sitting down and trying real hard, is super helpful to becoming like really attached to whatever character you're making. Now, it's not necessary, right? Like, it's helpful, but it's not necessary. A really good character interaction that you have mid-game can also do that for you.
Yeah.
Thorium is one of my players. We kind of put that game on the cupboard for now. But he made a character named Garnash. He didn't have a plan with Garnash. He just was like, I'm gonna make a bugbear. And I'm gonna make him a part of a circus. And he really loves all sorts of weapons. He just really fucking loves them. But the more that he was forced to roleplay as Garnash, the more he was forced to think of who Garnash is as a character. And it made him a lot more invested in every single interaction that he had to be able to figure out well, so how would Garnash think about this? How would he react to this? But he has to think about it in the moment because he's role playing. He can't just like stop and think, going. So that was helpful for him. But everybody has a different way of doing it. I think that being presented with good role play opportunities is a really helpful way. Having to write good backstories is a helpful way. Last I heard, Matt Mercer, I think for all the crit role players, he usually makes it mandatory for them to have at least like 5 pages of backstory just to explain who they are, where they came from, why they are where they are. And it shows. When you watch Crit Role, every single guy seems to know their character very well. And it's not just because they're a professional voice actor or anything like that. They know the characters because they wrote them. They wrote a short story about them. They know exactly everything about them. So they're able to, that makes it easier to play them. So there's a bunch of different tools that you can use to find motivation to play the character that you want to play, and I feel like all of them make it difficult to pull off the whole like everybody's got amnesia, none of you know who the hell you even are. I think that would be difficult for a lot of players to get into. It'd need to be somebody who's really into the like playing in the moment, or somebody who's like super into like taking a dare, or at the very least somebody who trusts you as a DM to be really creative with what you're going to end up doing with them. So in this is a niche group of people. This is not like your average player.
Oh no! This would never be your average group of players. But I am super intrigued by this idea. Like I said, I'm going to try to put it into practice. I'm going to try it because I think that challenging yourself, that's the other thing that I think that DMs have a tendency not to do, is not to challenge themselves. DMs are horrible about running the same kind of game over and over and over again because they're comfortable with it. And I think that is, it's not productive to us as a group. Because if we're not, we expect our players to challenge themselves, but we don't. If we're not willing to go, hey, we're going to just kind of throw this against the wall and see what sticks. And maybe the game doesn't work out. Maybe it does, but you won't know until you give it a shot. And I think that while I've never done anything like this before, I never even thought of I don't think I've ever thought of that. As a story arc before, and now I have.
Sounds super interesting, and now you want to give it a shot.
Yeah,
I get it.
That sounds like something that, and I think that's good for DMs to have us, and which is why I like this stream, because I have gotten a couple of messages about people watching this stream in particular and going, I never thought about things that way. I'm going to give that a shot. Or I exactly know that player. I have a player X that does what you guys were talking about the other night, and I'm going to try out this solution that you guys presented. So I think that I don't think DMs as a whole, we tend to be secretive about our games a lot. Like, we don't want the information to be out there in the ether so everybody knows what's going on sometimes. And I think that we need more discussion like this, more DMs sitting around the table going, okay, well, I had this guy do this. What did you do?
It's funny you say that because there's so I'm a part of a D&D Facebook group, and it's kind of a hit or miss when it comes to the topics that they discuss. But the ones I always love are the ones that start off with, "If you are a player in my game, do not read this thread."
Yes.
Because they've got some DM advice that they want, and they are beseeching everybody who has a little bit of experience to give them some advice. And I think that's always good. I think among DMs, we tend to be fairly open with each other about our games and like the ways in which we play them and the way in which we direct them, our prep work, the problems that we have, our solutions for problems, just in case anybody else has an issue. DMs generally get along with other DMs in my experience, just because we all have that sort of we come from that sort of stock where we've been behind the board, so to speak. Right. We know We know where. We know
Yeah.
all of this stuff. We've spent
No, I think-
hours upon hours prepping a game only for the players. So you spend 12 hours prepping a game, and then your players arrive, and they're like, "We're not going to do anything that you prepped for. We're going to go follow this bunny," and then they just do that. So there's
like Sunday night.
had that pain.
So like Sunday night. So basically Sunday night.
What? We were going where we were supposed to go. Okay, no, you can't blame us for Sunday. Okay. Let's go over Sunday real quick. We woke up. All right. We woke up from having camped out after having an encounter in the middle of the night with a bunch of wolves. We got joined up by a Leonid, and we were just like, cool. And we just kept going the place that we said that we were going to be going for at least like several sessions at that point. And then I just got into a conversation in RP, and you're like, by the way, you guys got lost. Deal with it.
You rolled a 9. You rolled a 9.
A 9 is not like fucking like, oh, by the way, we did a U-turn on a single. There's one road. How do we get turned around on one road? It's one road that goes this way and this way. How do we get turned around? It doesn't make any sense.
You didn't get turned.
On a 9? That's good enough for average.
You didn't get turned around. You just weren't paying attention.
I have the Outlander fee. I have background. I am perfectly aware of all of my surroundings. That's the way that it works.
Yes.
I'm able to retrace my steps perfectly. Like that's how it is.
Yes, but you're not in the Elven Woods. You've never been out here before.
No, I have been taught how to figure out how to get myself out of being lost. Anyway, that's besides the point. You threw a random encounter at us, where you're just like, it's a bunch of gnomes, and they were all turned to stone by something. Well, I don't want to be attacked by something that turns things to stone. We might be back down this way. Let's figure out what happened. So I decide I'm going to figure out what turned them to stone. Well, I found the tracks. I'm going to follow the tracks. We follow the tracks to this place, and we find the thing that turned them to stone. We kill the thing, and we're like, all right, is there any tracks beyond that? Is there anything beyond this that we should be investigating? It's like, you don't see anything. All right, then let's go ahead and go back.
No, I didn't say you don't see anything. I said there's the trail that you see, the broken bridge and the trail. You don't see any more footprints. You don't see any more tracks except for animal tracks.
That's fine, but we don't know what the hell is going on down that way at all. We have no clue. It could be like a whole army of undead for all we know. Not gonna deal with that. So we come on back, and we're gonna go back on the way that we came. We're gonna figure out our way back. So our satyr talks to the fucking horses and is like, "Do you know the way that we're supposed to be going?" They're like, "Yeah, we know the way we're supposed to be going." And then they take us in that direction. They give us directions as to where we're supposed to go. We head in that direction. We come across the carriage that the gnomes had come from. That had been knocked over. I'm like, I don't trust this in the slightest. And then immediately go and start like surveying the area like something's gonna come out and attack us. And then fucking I go join up with the Leonid on top of a bunch of rocks, survey the area again. You're like, yeah, you see some mounds, and I'm like, I know it's Ankegs. I don't know what Ankegs are as a character, but as a player, I know it's fucking Ankegs.
Yep.
So I'm like, all right, guys, you better be fucking careful because there's got to be something coming down there. And lo and behold, Ankegs attack, kill the Ankegs, we leave. That was the session. What do you mean we didn't do anything relevant to what we were supposed to be doing? We stayed on every single thing that you tossed at us. We did we followed through on it, whatever it was. We didn't just go off in the middle. It's not like we woke up and we're like, you know what, guys, this quest that we're in the middle of, let's just fuck it. Let's just go somewhere else. Let's just do something different. We didn't do that. No. Don't you be telling me that we did shit like that. We did not.
You missed a bunch of signposts, is what I'm saying. It's like there are a lot of breadcrumbs that were laid out for you guys that they were just like, sure.
I didn't want to pursue the undead cockatrice and the undead other things too much because fucking at least half of the characters didn't even want to investigate the cockatrice to begin with, and they were mad that we were even there. So fuck it, let's just go back.
You get a point of inspiration for DMs After Dark for that wonderful explanation.
I'm just saying, it's not our fault that things went off the rails, all right?
No, they didn't go off the rails. They were fine. And to that, I did make a mistake. I've said it in chat to my players. I explained it. I made a huge mistake, and I'm going to let other DMs out there know so they do not do the same thing. I expected the party to accomplish a certain goal and be at a certain spot in the campaign at the end of the session, before the end of the session Sunday night. You guys were going to get to your destination. In doing so, I knew that the characters had to have another level, right? And since we're doing milestones, I chose that during the break that we took to let them go ahead and level up. This was a problem for several of my players, and not a problem for some of them, because some of them were just like, oh, I'm a barbarian, click, 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 cool, I'm done. Whereas some of the other players were not sure what they were going to pick at level 3. And
well, it wasn't even just that. So
there was a lot of role-playing stuff that didn't get accomplished as well, and that was my fault. And I skipped that I chose expediency over content.
Yeah. And we're talking about Des here. I completely understand her perspective. Because for one thing, if you're going to be going Arcane Trickster, which is what she wanted to go, you got choices when you get to Arcane, because you got spell slots now.
Yeah.
You got a lot of spells to choose from. That alone, fucking nutty. That's a lot of stuff to choose from. That's a fucking decision in and of itself.
Well, it was third level. That was my regardless of what class you are, third level is super powerful.
If it's like if it's 5th level where everybody just basically gets extra attack and that's it, then that's probably not going to be a problem. But it is going to be a problem at 3rd level. That's a major level for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And also, of course, she wanted there to be a roleplay reason why she was able to do this, and I completely understand that as well.
Yeah.
She just didn't get the chance to do that. You just got to be careful if you're gonna level up your players. Level them up either before or after the session.
I think that had I told you guys ahead of the week, during the week, prepare to be level 3 during the game. So have it ready so that we can do the role play and stuff.
Yeah. If you do like but to me that kind of takes away from the impact of doing the level too. Like I feel I do kind of get a slight Philly accent when I start going. I don't know why. I don't even live near Philly. I'm like 3 hours away from it. But I don't know. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that if you do give that like warning ahead of time, saying, "Oh, by the way, you guys are probably going to level mid-session," just be aware of that. Be prepped. Be aware of what you're going to be doing. If you do that, it kind of takes away from the impact of the level up. I really like. My players, whenever I tell them they level up at the end of a session, they're always like, "Yeah, they're fucking hype about it."
Right.
But if you do that like in text in like a group chat, being like, "Prep, you're probably gonna level mid-session," and it takes a lot of the excitement out of it. Takes a lot of the.
Here's the thing. I don't know how many DMs use milestones at this point. I think a lot of us have switched over to milestones as opposed to just keeping track of random XP.
It's just easier.
It is. Yeah. Well, it is just easier. I find it's easier. But hey, Mark, thanks for showing up. Thanks for bringing some friends and whatnot. I think that the level up during the game has happened to me multiple times in the games that I'm playing right now, where we take a long rest, we've earned enough XP, and we just level up there in the middle of the game. So, because your XP total has reached 3,000 or 3,500 or whatever it is for the next level, and you're just required to level up when you hit that. So, and it's always been this way. I think, Milestone is new-ish.
Well,
New-ish.
yeah, I guess new-ish. It's been around for probably about like 15, 20 years now, though.
Really?
Relatively speaking, compared to the entire length of D&D, I guess, but it's been around at least since like 3rd edition, best I know.
No, there wasn't a milestone in 3.5. Not that I remember. We always had to keep track. You can look it up. Find out. This is why you watch the stream, so you can have information at hand.
Well, people have been using it since before that. Okay. It wasn't an official rule until later, but people have been doing it for a while.
Right.
A good long while.
See, I never ran into. I know that my groups have never used it until now. Yeah. So Mark says that he did in 3.5, but it wasn't official. So because he hates XP. I think a lot of DMs just hate that kind of math.
Yeah, to be fair, there's some benefits to doing the XP system. Like, for instance, being able to reward players in a very small way for doing little things that they don't normally do to give them a motivation, right? They don't normally, like, role play or anything like that, and they're just kind of, like, dead at the fucking table. But at one point, they actually get into the session, and they're like, oh, actually, I got an idea here. I think I've got something that can work. And they do something, like, super creative or some shit like that. You want to give them a little reward, right? You know, to be fair, inspiration can do that, but you can only have one at a time.
Right.
So if you don't use it, then
that's
like, oh, you did 2 things this session that both earn inspiration. Well, you only get one, so
yeah, that's So Mark said it's lopsided toward combat. The reason they made it lopsided toward combat in 3.5 is because it was a huge in 2nd edition. If you remember, in 2nd edition. 2nd edition was a mathematical nightmare for XP. It literally, you got XP for.
I got censored by Automod.
I'll let you have that one. Yeah, what's 2nd edition? So 2nd edition, you got points. You got XP for every for 100. I think it was like 50 XP per spell level when you cast a spell. Rogues got it for picking locks, for sneaking, for hiding, for back. Like, you got XP for damn near everything, and it was, and the XP totals were so huge that you had to keep track of all that so you could level, especially if you were a mage.
Yeah,
if you weren't
got to like level 6, it was like 12,000 XP. It's like, Jesus Christ. What am I supposed to do here? How do I keep track of this much XP?
Oh yeah,
I gotta get 12K to go from 5 to 6.
Oh no, it wasn't 12. Wasn't 12K. Try more like 120. Like,
oh, that's true.
Second edition was lopsided. Well, everything was lopsided towards rogues because they were considered to be the most.
Because every time you disarm a trap, XP. Every time you spot a trap,
XP. Well, XP was lopsided towards rogues because rogues also had the lowest XP total that they required for leveling because
because it was thought like, well, rogues don't get that much, so you should let them level up more.
Yeah, because they don't get the big 9th level spells, and it went rogues, fighters, and but it was one of those things where it was really it was really bad. So they tried to fix it in 3.5, which was also horrid and gave us the horrible CR system that we're still using today, which absolutely does not work in any calculations that you have.
God damn it! The 5e CR system can suck a dick. Oh yeah. This is totally a CR 5 encounter. It killed all of my characters, like without taking much damage, honestly. What's a T-Rex again? What the hell is that? Is CR7?
Yeah.
I think.
CR9, right?
That thing can one-shot a 7th level character.
Well, so here's the thing.
Swallow done.
So like the 2 Omkegs, there are 2 level 2s, and for the 6 players that I supposedly had, and I cut one. There were supposed to be 3 because I had 6 players. It was supposed to be a deadly encounter, right? Because they have that acid spit. Right, that does 3d6. And and it was supposed to be a deadly encounter because that was supposed to be the last fight before the caves. We're missing the cleric. We're missing the rogue. I cut one off. Lundy one-shots the first one. Basically.
Well, to be fair, everyone else got a hit in first. I just finished it off.
Yeah, you did 56 points of damage.
I finished it off by doing more than its max HP.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I have a lot to say about this. Okay, Mark, what do you got to say? You can join us in chat if you'd like. You want to say it out loud so people can hear, so you don't have to worry about Nightbot beating your up.
Chatting's gonna be a problem. I am not taking the time to type it all. Then fucking get in the goddamn Discord. Listen, I've been streaming all day too, Mark. I feel it. All right.
Yeah, hop on in, man.
Since our
we got room for you.
Come on in, dude.
Mark runs 6 games. If anybody's got an idea about how the CR system works, it's not only the higher CR things don't make any sense given their stats because they can just one-shot things but like you're saying, sometimes shit that's like supposed to be really difficult for an entire group of level 5s can be one-shot by a level 3. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You guys asked for it.
Yeah. Hi, Mark. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys? I hope everybody's enjoying the stream tonight. And yes, I have been streaming all day. I have literally been role-playing since 10 o'clock this morning.
And we love you for it.
Yeah. Des and I, Jess and I did handled the Andal Des stuff that we needed.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome.
So, let me turn my camera on here if I can remember how to do that on my phone, because I am sitting in my living room on my phone right now. Hold on. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay.
I'm ruining your flow here.
No, Lundy and I started with technical difficulties suck for no apparent reason other than you have to have 1 or 2 at every stream. Otherwise, it's not a real stream at this point.
Yeah. Unless you have at least like 3 to 4 things go wrong, it's not a stream.
Yeah.
That happened to me today that happened to Mark today with our stream that we did for the D&D game for Help Wanted. Everybody's cameras were just fucking going fucking nutty.
What's that?
Expanding, getting smaller, expanding, getting smaller, moving over here for no reason, not touching anything. They just move. And then for me, I couldn't get my fucking mic to work for a good solid half hour.
Yeah, that's there's difficulties inherent in the way we do D&D at this point.
Did it work? Okay.
Yeah.
This worked.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're good, man.
Okay. So the CR system sucks, right? We all know that.
Yes.
We all know that.
Yes.
Okay. But I also want to talk about if you're going to talk about the CR system, you have to talk about the adventuring day, because it is made off of the idea of the adventuring day. And the thing about it is that 5th edition focuses on the adventuring day when it comes to primarily what I would say the dungeon crawl or wilderness adventure. It focuses on an adventuring day where the players are getting into multiple combats over the course of a day. Now, a lot of DMs read that and think the course of a session, but a single session does not need to be an adventuring day. Does not need to be from beginning of an end to a session or an adventure. It does not need to be that concise. An adventuring day can take place over multiple adventures over multiple sessions for it to be a full adventuring day. The problem is that when you have, especially groups like ours, where we have very role-playing heavy groups, sometimes the adventuring day consists of a single combat encounter, and the CR system does not work for for an adventuring day that has a single combat encounter. A deadly combat is not going to be deadly to a bunch of freshly rested adventurers who have all of their spells, all of their abilities, all of their tricks up their sleeve. You throw them into a quote-unquote deadly adventure, and they're going to supernova and kill those creatures before they have a chance to get off the ground. Especially if they know this is going to be our only combat for the day, because then
they can just unload
his highest level spells.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They
Just
like, oh look, unload.
Exactly. When you are building up, if you want a truly challenging encounter for a bunch of freshly awoken, freshly rested heroes, you need to go above and beyond whatever you think they can handle, and then dumb down the HP as needed to get it to a nice balance where it feels challenging, but they still get to win, right? If that's what you want. And sometimes you put I personally do not balance my encounters when it comes to single encounter days. I throw everything, including the kitchen sink.
I didn't notice that. That's so surprising to me. That is so surprising to me.
Listen, not only is that not surprising to Loophole, it's definitely not surprising to me, who has been in the Wednesday sessions. Those bandit camps that we had to clear out. Holy fucking shit! I looked up. No, they were not fine. They were not, especially the human one. Good freaking lord, dude! I know. I've used all of those NPCs before. I know their stat blocks. All right, and I knew for a fact that captain alone. We're all level like 3. I knew the fact that captain alone was a CR5 who was yes. I knew that all of his like regular dudes who weren't archers but like were regular dudes who could engage in melee. I knew every single one of them was a CR2. I know all of the archers were a CR1 half, and I knew that the two like lieutenants were both CR4s. And I knew that they had multiple attacks, which we didn't even have access to at that point, because again, we're not even level 5 yet. So,
no. Let's talk about
that there was no way that we should reasonably take out this encounter. All right.
But did you die?
Oh my goodness! Oh my! Yes, I almost did. I got knocked the fuck out.
We're leaving Diz. We're leaving Diz out of the loop here because we're talking about games.
I'm enjoying this encounter.
So here, Mark. Here's a question for instance. We're talking about the encounter system, and it's something that we encountered yesterday in our group, where our bard basically eliminated half of your encounter.
I mean, it's what they're made to do, right?
Right. But how do you as a DM, because that encounter should have been a lot harder for us. We didn't, except for the NPC that's supposed to get attacked, we didn't really take any damage. Like
it's a reward, right? It's a reward for smart play.
Exactly.
Like you can't just be like, no, this has to be deadly. You have to feel like your lives are in absolute danger right now. Like, if we're fucking good enough, why should it?
Right.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. That was my exact response. Is that you want your players to be clever. You want your players to use role playing within combat. And you want to reward players who do that, and the best way to do that is when they come up with cool shit that makes the combat encounter easier, like they win. The combat encounter with the elven terrorists that have been coming up in multiple games in my setting, every party has handled it differently, and it's happened to 3 different parties now. Mind the cat.
Yeah,
that's not familiar. The thing is that like the parties that eliminated the spellcaster or eliminated the spellcaster's concentration on the gate spell had a much easier time with the encounter than the parties that didn't, because the key to that combat was getting that gate closed so that enemies stopped pouring out of it. Then again, you could have also been the group that first encountered it and just lit.
Well, there were 2 groups.
Killed everything.
And in our defense, in your defense, there were 2 groups. I think that you
That was
might
two.
have.
The first encounter, there were two groups.
Yes, I think that for
Um,
that one, honestly, I think you should have had a second spellcaster with the second portal. I think that would have.
Sure. In any event,
Yeah.
and the smarter thing would have had him cast the portal up above him so that the creature.
Yeah, like you did to the Friday night group, and then they're killed tech
Yep.
type. But that's because you can't wade through them all when they're dumping out.
The deal is though that like you can set up encounters that are impossibly hard for the players, but there's a trick to it, right? There's a way for them to win if they're smart, and but you have to, again, as a dungeon master, you should leave breadcrumbs for that. You don't want to just set it up where there's like, oh, there's a trick to this encounter, and if they don't figure it out, well, then they're screwed, and then never give them any hint that that trick exists, and then
Right.
be like, well, if you guys had figured out the trick and you were smart enough, like that's not
Yeah.
really playing the game in a way that's rewarding, right? You want your players to be able to figure out what the trick is, so that
You
they
don't-
have an
you don't wanna-
opportunity to use it.
You know when your characters, your players should be sitting there being like, "Man, we're getting our asses kicked," and you just sitting there because being like, "That's because you're all stupid."
Exactly.
Well, maybe they made you mad this session before. So.
Yeah. So Mark, we had just finished the first hour. We had discussed a lot of things. One of the things that came up was Lundy brought up the fact that in some other role-playing games like Shadowrun, there is a disadvantage called amnesia, and there's two versions where you wake up and you don't remember anything past before a year ago, and then there's the more difficult one where you basically hand your character sheet to the DM. They make your character, and you just wake up as this person, right?
Interesting.
So we were discussing it and trying to figure out ways, because one of the big things that I know you enjoy it, Lundy enjoys it, Diz enjoys it, is backstory, right? Like, backstory
Absolutely.
just makes characters. So
Sure.
we were discussing, if you were to implement that, how would you get the players invested? Like, if you took an entire group, let's say you get 5 players, you're going to do the same thing to all of them, right? They all buy into the concept. And then our thought is if they wrote backstories and then you switch the backstories around, like shuffle them around, right? So the 4 of us would each write a backstory, and then you would get the one that Diz wrote, Diz would get the one that I wrote, Lundy would get the one that you wrote, right? And then those would be the backstories for the characters that I make for you, and then you guys wake up with no knowledge. Like, I give you your name, I give you a stat block, and basically a character sheet with a blank name and a stat block, and say, here you guys are, you're in this situation, go. If you had players that are invested in that, like if you had players that are going to buy into that theory.
Yeah, because I've already made the point that I think that the vast majority, like 95% of players, would not be down for this. And
Right.
the ones who would be are people who are like played with you for a long time and trust you, or are like super into like risky shit. The amount of players who'd be down for this are a very niche group.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? I think that's the key above all else, is that you have to have players that buy in, that say, yeah, I want to try this. It's an exciting concept. I like it. And I buy into the idea that I have no idea who my character is. I have complete and total amnesia. I think that's interesting. I don't know how I would handle it. Ideas are kind of coalescing in my mind as I think about it. I think that a way I might do it, that I think would be interesting, is I don't think I'd have anybody have backstory. I don't think I'd write a backstory for any characters. I don't think I'd have anybody write anything for it. I think I'd hand out a bunch of stat blocks to people, or put some stat blocks out on the table that have no connection to anything. They're just stat blocks. Right, they're just ability scores or even level 0 characters. Okay,
Right.
When you say level 0, it's just like it's no class. It's just race and and ability scores, right? That's it. That's all that's on the character sheet. And have them all start out with a D4 worth of hit points plus Constitution, put them out on the table, have everybody pick one, and then have a table of random trinkets, okay? Have everybody roll on the table of random trinkets. They get 3, and then those trinkets are the starts of their backstories. All they have are these trinkets. They have no idea what connection are to them. I have no idea as the DM, and then as the story plays out, you and the player can start discovering what those trinkets have into a connection to them, and begin to build what their backstory is. The same thing, having them start out at level 0 means they may start doing things in this scenario, and one of them may be like, well, I've got a high wisdom, I've got a low this, I've got this, I'm going to start searching for food, and all of a sudden you develop towards like, okay, you were a ranger, because you're foraging, like you're doing this, you're doing that, like maybe it builds towards them. Builds their actions in the first adventure may build towards whatever class they actually are, or were before they gained amnesia, right? And so I think it would be cool to be a process where there's a lot of random stuff on the character sheet, or there's a lot of random rolls made at the beginning during session 0 in character creation. The first session could be a 0 level session, and you and the players are discovering the characters while you're playing the game. And discovering who the characters are then becomes a part of the story of the game itself. And I think that's probably how I would handle it and get the players excited, because the players would be like, I have all these cool little trinkets. I have no idea why I have them. Neither does the DM. We're going to make this up as we go. It's going to be super improv-y. It's going to be storytelling, or it's going to be collaborative, right? Instead of the DM already having your backstory and telling you what it is as the story unfolds. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
so the other question was,
that's how I would handle it.
I think that'd be extremely harder to pull off, though, to be able to do it like that. Like when I think of like a backstory that I can use as a DM, it's something that's already established, because it gives me some predictive capabilities as to what is going to happen to this character as a result of what happened to them in the past. So if somebody if their backstory includes them being hunted down by some like group of bandits that they escaped from as a result of like they joined them at one point and then they decided to leave, but the bandits didn't want to leave, if like that gives me an understanding that they're probably going to be distrusted by underworld members because they are connected to those bandits as well, and then they're probably going to get attacked at some point, or they might get arrested when they get to town. They have no idea why they got arrested, but like, trust me, you did bad shit, like this is what happened. That it would be easier to.
Well, you can. I think that
I already know.
Yeah, I think that Mark makes a good point where if it's collaborative, the players have more autonomy because they can say, "Oh, this is why I have this thing." Like, I think I remember why this thing is, but it also gives you the DM autonomy, because you can say, let's say they figured out what one of their trinkets is on their own, and then you can have a story on, or you need a plot hook for something. You can go
build off that.
Yeah, you can go, oh, here's this trinket, this is why this is happening to you, and see how they react to it.
Right, but Alex is right as well, because like backstory gives you a lot of opportunities to build out plots from those backstories,
right?
And you're going to not have that in a game like this, and so yeah, I think it's a challenge. It would be a challenge not only for the players but also for the game master, dungeon master. That it would be a lot. It would be a very different game. Everybody would have to be on board with it, and you would have to go in with the mindset. You would have to be proactive you would need proactive players, and you would need to have a proactive DM who were willing to be like, this is the epitome of like improvisational dungeon mastering game D&D, where we're literally starting from nothing and building the story together. Because it's like, you're right, like, look at Tuesday's game. And Tuesday's game, we had a character who has a backstory who, like, we've had a lot of backstory stuff come up that have woven major threads in the plot because of those backstories. And if those backstories hadn't been written by the players and hadn't been there, like, those are like, there's probably like 6 sessions out of all the games that we've run that would not even exist
Right.
because of backstory.
Backstory. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. The other thing was
you'd be running on empty.
yeah. The other thing is how do you handle level ups? Is in a game like that, do you assign them how they've been playing, or do you let them choose based on what they think? Because
Again,
yeah, see, there's a lot of logistical issues in that.
Yeah, my thoughts on that are the same. Of that, it would be a collaborative conversation between DM and player. So you really would need proactive players that can make decisions not based on mechanics, but based on how their character's story is unfolding in the game. Not based on optimization, but based on role playing and solely role playing. And there might be other again. I'm not the type of person personally who thinks that like there's a best type of system out there. I used to, but I've jumped around from system to system and ultimately landed on 5e for the simplicity. But like to me, role playing is a matter of the players, and the system. The system is secondary. The system is basically just how you answer the question: does this fail or succeed? And honestly, the role playing is like. I can play a role-playing game without touching dice.
Yes.
And role play. Our Sunday group, we could literally, I told you could stick us in a field and we could role play for 4 hours with no adventure, no dice, nothing. We could just role play as our characters for 4 hours and no story beyond the story of us having conversations in character for 4 hours would happen. You don't need a system for that, right?
No.
So I kind of said, I was kind of thinking like maybe there's a different system that would be better for this, for an adventure like this. But in reality, like what it always comes down to is conversations between the DM and their players, both in game and out of game, that create an atmosphere where it's like, where you're working together to make story decisions. And that only works if you have players who are invested, who are proactive, and who are interested in a role-playing experience, not just playing a board game where you roll dice and kill monsters.
Right. So, I think we've gotten everybody's opinion on it. So I'm gonna ask just for clarification. Big Lundy, would you attempt this campaign? Yes or no?
As a DM, yes. As a player, no.
All right. Diz.
I don't think I would. I don't think I would do it as a DM. I don't know any players that would probably buy into that right now. They would have to be very experienced players, I think.
Would you do it as a player?
As a player, I really like writing backstories. I would probably try it just to try something new. But I really love writing backstories for characters, so it would be challenging. But you're kind of writing the backstory as you're going through it, so I mean, kind of interactively. So I think I would do it as a player.
I kind of see it like I honestly kind of see the backstory as like a choose your own adventure backstory. Where
it kind of would be. There'd be a lot of yes-anding going on. That would be the entirety of the campaign. Is just the DM just being like, just throwing something at you and being like, and you're just going, all right.
Well, as a DM, you can with the right players, because I do that on Sunday. I just like, here's the thing, and you guys just really take over. So, Mark, what do you think? Would you DM and would you play?
Yes to both. I would do that, but. I'm an insane monster.
Yes. Well, that's because I said that I totally would play a game like that. We have played similar games where we just the DM prints off pre-generated first level characters, hand them out randomly, and we played till like 15th level as those characters, right? So
I mean, let's be real. Serani and Tektite were both characters that were like that in our campaign. Serani had just woken up after hundreds of years of being
a bush.
Or Serani Sarani was awoken and has been alive for like 6 years, so he really has no, or 6 months, so he really has no backstory beyond that. And Tektite was asleep for hundreds of years before waking up, and his backstory is basically irrelevant. He's discovering things about him. He was discovering himself all over. So, like, I think that you would be the ideal player for that type of a campaign.
Do you think that I could pull it off as a DM? Because this is something that we were talking about earlier. I really actually want to give this a shot. I think that this is, I think this is something that is new and exciting and different. And if nobody else is doing it, I think it's a good, especially for the medium that we're using at this point. I think it's something that people don't get a chance to see, right?
Sure.
So.
Yeah. I think it would be a challenge. I think it's very out of the box. So, but I think it would be a challenge for any DM, right? I said that earlier.
Yeah.
You'd have to have the right players. You definitely would have to have the right players to pull it off.
Oh, absolutely.
Do I think that you, as a DM, can handle it? Yeah. As long as you handle it similarly to how you handle our Sunday group. I think it would need some more direction as far as immediately present stimuli of the story, because I think that again, comparing it to the group that you run on Sunday, like you said, we kind of take over, but we all have a solid idea of who our characters are, and that's
in this scenario, we wouldn't have our backstories to bounce off of when we
So it would be dictated by, because Mark, I've been talking to you about the prison thing that I'm running on Saturdays, and I was thinking that this is exactly because my problem was with starting that game is how do you get 5 people, 6 people to go, yeah, we're nobody knows each other, but we got to get the hell out of Dodge and figuring out how to escape this thing. And I thought, well, this idea fits perfectly for that, because there's no way to know. Not only do you not know where you are, you also don't know who you are. You just know that here's the circumstances around you. Go. Right?
It's so hard.
I know.
It's so hard. And I can only think of how I would do it, right? So I can't, like, that's one of those things is, like, you can only think, like I said, I can only think about how I can do it, how I would do it. So, yeah.
Just bear in mind, like when it comes to our Sunday session, I mean, the main reason we're able to roleplay as much as we have is that each one of us has made a backstory that gives us a character that's able to roleplay to the level that we do. So if we did not have those at all, then our ability to roleplay with each other would be limited very much so. I mean, I consider us all fairly decent role players, all things considered. David's always good in regardless of who he's playing. I consider myself all right at it. Yourself, I mean, obviously you're a DM, you role play NPCs all the time. You're pretty good at like jumping from different perspectives pretty quickly, especially and now you get to just devote all of that energy to one character, so that's always good. Dio's very good at playing specifically whatever character that she makes. She invests herself wholly into whatever character she makes. Des and Crumble, both of them, they do perfectly well with the stories that they've made for themselves and stick to that really quickly. But the problem is the reason why we're able to do that is because we've created a blueprint for how our characters work based on the backstory.
Yeah.
So take that away and it's going to be all improv. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who you are. I don't know who I am.
Look, it's the type of game that you have to start off the ground running, right? It has to be in media res execution. So, like, for example, your Prison Break example, rather than have them starting off in a cell thinking, oh, we have to figure out a way to get out of here, I would start them off mid-prison break, right? Something came into the prison, something happened to spark this, and it's like, oh, look, we have a way out of here. The wall just blew up, and we have a way out, and like get them right in the middle of like chaotic insanity happening, pushing them forward to like have to make decisions and have to act,
Yeah.
or and like keep it like it has to be at that breakneck pace for at least the first session, especially if you start them off at like a level 0. You don't want to put them into situations where there's a lot of like things that can kill them, because four hit points plus constitution is very fragile.
Yeah.
But it would definitely have to be like this pace of like, you do this and this happens and then this happens and this happens, and you have to make decision after decision. Like you're making decisions on instinct. It's like, oh, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to do this. Like where the players are kind of forced to
make decisions on their own.
choices.
Yeah, make those choices immediately without conscious thought of deliberation.
It has to be right because and the idea is that as they make choices, that starts defining who they may have been and who they currently are. And as those choices are made and those definitions and those things come out, by the end of the session, you should be able to be like, well, you grabbed a sword, you started defending the party when you could, you did this, you did that. Maybe you were a fighter or a paladin in a past before you lost your memory, and maybe that's the first, and you take the first level of fighter or paladin. But again, there's going to be a lot of conversation afterwards, like analyzing how the decisions the players made throughout the first adventure, analyzing, talking with them, talking through it, and being like, hey, you made this decision, you made that decision, you made this decision. It kind of makes me think you're leaning in this direction. What do you think about that? And the player thinking about it and kind of deciding if they agree with you or not. And it has to be a dialogue, right? It would be a very challenging game to run. There'd be a lot of one-on-one time between dungeon masters and players.
There's also the issue of cohesivity of the party, because if they escape from prison, as soon as there's a down period, right, where there's no push in story, what's stopping the characters from just going their own separate ways? Because they have no ties to anything at this point. So.
Right. And I think again, you have a situation where, like you said, you need strong veteran players who know, I'm here to play a game where the characters stay together, and so right now that push as a player is going to have to motivate me to have a reason why they would work together. Yeah.
To help you build that cohesivity. Because I run into cohesivity problems with players with extensive backstories.
Yeah, that's always a problem. I think two of the hardest things I have as a DM is making sure the players are going to want to stick together, first of all. And then second, I think the hardest thing for me is introducing new players. I think that's the hardest thing for me to do, is when a character gets killed and introducing a new player. That's always so difficult, because we have this party that's, well, let's take Serani for instance. They have lost a player, the group lost a player, and then you're looking at, people who were, been together for months, and now there's this other thing that wants to hang out with you. How do you...
other thing.
Well, yeah, it's
accurate.
It's accurate for Serani, but how do you... I think you handled it really well. I think it's also a testament to the players that you already had and their ability to role play. And I think that worked out well. But that's always been a hard thing for DMs to do, is to insert characters into the middle of a game.
Yeah, that can be difficult. You have to find a way to have them mesh with the party, right, or have a reason to be with the party. And it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more effort that needs to be made on the DM's part to make them fit into the story somehow. When you have a new player coming in mid-game, absolutely. I've been, like you said, I've been blessed with really great players. I don't think there's a single game I run where the players haven't bought into party cohesion from the start. at least my current games.
Yeah.
And that, what's that?
No, I agree. It seems that every single game that you run, everyone's pretty much on board with just like being just. I accept every other player. We're fine. I just wish my players won.
Yeah, that's
Because I swear it's just ridiculously hard because they're all just like, I need a reason to like you.
yeah.
It's
I've
like,
had players.
can you not just like roll with it?
I've had players actually kill the party member that's trying to come in. I've had a group actually kill the party member that was trying to come in.
Well, to be fair, if anybody witnessed the Horus event in the Saturday Night group, that was Horus.
That was a very short-lived character.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so that's something that's.
I really came in trying to kill them, so like, can you really blame them? You know, it's
No. Oh no! I tried to. I made him a prisoner and put him in a box so they could open the box because these knuckleheads had decided to do. They were way off the rails to begin with, and I was trying to get them back. So part of his story that we had talked about was he wanted to go to the place they were supposed to go anyway to get them back on track. And they're talking to this apparent entity inside this chest, like, yeah, I'm trapped in here, let me out. They all assumed it was a demon of some sort because the chest is bound and stuff. So when it popped out, when the cart got lightning bolted and the chest exploded and this dude rolled out, they were like, get it, because he was a tiefling. They just went, oh, look, horns, we were right, it's a demon, kill it. And I was like, okay.
Oh, God.
Okay. I'm like...
I'm 20 sessions into my Monday campaign right now, and like half of the party still isn't 100% certain why they bother traveling with the party. They still haven't figured it out, and I don't know what the hell the deal is. I understand part of it, right? The Dragonborn dude just doesn't trust. Well, it's not that he doesn't even trust. He just doesn't think much of anybody who's not him. He's just very self-centered in that sense. I get that, but like, dude, you've got world implicating end game plans that you want to do. You're gonna need help. These guys have been effective up to now. Maybe be friends with them so that they'll help you more, or like be more drawn to you. Like, can you not? If you want to have like an evil plan to like just like change the entire world for in your idea for the better, but for everybody else they're going to suffer horribly. If you're going to do that, you can't do it alone. You need help. So like, got a fucking party.
Yeah.
Team up with them.
Every bad guy needs henchmen, right? Every bad guy needs a henchman.
Exactly. Why are you being so standoffish? Like, you need help with this. You can't just do this on your own. And then, of course, there's the other guy who he's got a backstory thing. He's a changeling, but he still hasn't revealed that. And it's like, at this point, what reason do you have not to just tell them? Like, you've even used it to the group's benefit twice now. And like, why do you refuse to tell them? It's like, I just don't want to. Like, just tell them.
Yeah,
like,
that's...
Look, it'd be a great roleplay moment where you're just like, I trust you guys now. I'm going to confide in you. I'm going to tell you guys something about myself that I don't normally tell people because it's kind of dangerous. A lot of people don't trust my kind. That sort of thing. That'd be great. It'd be a great roleplay moment. Why don't you do it? I don't get. It's so frustrating.
I will tell you what. The Wednesday night group, those characters, probably care for each other, have meshed emotionally, maybe more than any of the other groups that I run for. Those characters are very emotionally invested in each other, and one of the players is a changeling and still has not revealed the fact that they are a changeling to the party, and may never do it unless it actually becomes necessary for them to use their changeling ability, and they haven't had to yet.
Yeah.
And so,
see, I think I think something like that is fine. I like the introducing a brand new unknown into the party dynamic is really difficult. Even for experienced DMs, it's really, you have to put a lot of thought and planning and consideration into, because the players know each other, the characters don't, and that's something that you have to, like for the Sunday group, if one of you all died, putting a new character in is going to be incredibly difficult. Like, it's
if one of the characters in the Sunday group died, I would legitimately cry. Like, for real life, me,
all of them. Yeah.
tears would happen.
Yeah, but how do I?
And we've only played 4 sessions.
Yeah,
and we've only played 4 sessions.
yeah, but how do we? But like, think about that game though. How would you bring in somebody new? Like, that's,
I don't know.
Well, I think all of us are experienced enough as players to be able to figure out like a way in which to make a character that would just kind of like be in the area for one reason or another.
Right,
like,
right.
We're all pretty decent at that. We're all fairly experienced. Like, you could make somebody who's just like a member of like a tribe that's just like hunting in the area.
Right,
for one reason or another.
But that's not the issue. It's the issue of these party members mesh so well together, and they've become so close in such a short period of time that I, as a DM, don't want you guys to just, like, I would never expect Andal to trust a goblin. Like, I would never expect him to do that. Like, that's not something.
I think Andal easily.
Andal, maybe not Andal, but I think maybe, Lund. Yeah, I think that throwing somebody in who's not part of that, it would be hard. I think it would be hard.
I don't think you're right about this. I mean, you brought in the Leonid, and we all just went, yeah, okay. Like, there wasn't a big debate. There wasn't like, we shouldn't bring her. We shouldn't bring her along. It's a bad idea. It was just like, I wouldn't, but it's up to you. I mean, honestly, I don't care. So I don't think this. I really don't think it would be an issue to bring somebody in. I think whoever would be brought in, everybody in the group would just be like, cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, you could just have it be a random encounter where it's just like you come across a hunter who's currently being attacked by a bunch of things. And they're screaming for help. And then you go help them, and the hunter's just like, well, I have been alone up till now, but clearly shit's dangerous, so I just go to you guys.
Yeah, I would agree. So I think that there's a few things at play when you're dealing with characters meshing as a party. You have the expectations that are set, the level of experience of the players, the personalities of the players themselves, and the cohesiveness of the story. Those are the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah. But I'm lucky enough that, like, I've been able to pick and choose what players I play with and what characters go into any particular group, because I have such a large pool of players to draw from. Alex, I know your Monday night group is basically a group of players that came to you and said, we want to play D&D, will you run for us? That's a hugely different story, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that with a group like that, I think that there's a need to, right off the bat, set a strong precedence of what your expectations are as a dungeon master. Saying to a group, especially a group of players who have never played before, I think it's very important to say to them, like, look, this is a cooperative game. I am going to do what I can to give you reasons to be together, but you need to work with me as players to figure out reasons why your characters would be together. Like, help me help you.
I don't think a lot of characters, I don't think a lot of players, when they get started, I don't think they understand the level of, like,
cooperation.
The level that it takes away when you don't cooperate. I don't think they
And
like,
so-
because I understand the desire to have that character that just kind of like does their own thing, and they're just tagging along because it's just something to do. It makes me a little bit of money. I get some loot. It's fine. I've got my own plans, so I don't really care about you guys. You don't understand how much that takes away from the game to do that sort of thing. And
Right.
like if you're not going to let me give you a reason. Look, I'm straight up. Now, this is a spoiler, so if any of my fucking players are fucking watching right now, stop. But whether it's on YouTube or here, I don't give a shit. But as far as like Mr. Evil Dude, as far as the Monday thing is concerned, he's the only one who's evil in the group. I'm straight up just gonna have the BBEG just try and recruit his ass. Like they just that's the only thought that I have right now is just like I need to give him a reason to like give a shit about things, and he doesn't care about anybody who's not himself. He only cares about furthering his own goals. So screw it. The BBEG is gonna be like, you need help doing your thing? I can help you. Help me do my thing. That's what's gonna happen. He's going to be evil.
Sure.
He's going to be like, you just, at the very least, it gives him a reason. And at least I'm following along with his backstory and also his motivations. So, it's going to be an interesting boss fight when that comes to fruition.
I'll say this real quick. I think, and the point I was trying to get at, I think, is that especially with newer players, especially with players who are not as experienced, I think that it's important to tell them to explain that. Going into the game, they don't know, and so it's our job as DMs, right, to set the expectations at the table. That's part of what we do as dungeon masters. Is we're not. I say this at the beginning of every one of my games in my session 0. I tell my players like, these are my expectations at the table. I have a social contract that I send to all my players and say, this is my expectation at the table of how we treat each other, how we behave as players. And I set an expectation that says, look, if you are going to be a problem player, I will talk to you about the issues that are being created and give you an opportunity to correct those behaviors. And if you don't, I have no problem asking you to leave the game. I have no problem saying that you're not welcome at my table anymore. And I think that as Dungeon Masters, we're there to facilitate fun for the group at the table. And a part of that job is not only adjudicating the rules of the game, but adjudicating the expectations outside the game, adjudicating the rules of being a group of people who are playing a game together. And I think, and maybe you have, Alex, if you haven't had that conversation, I'm sure you've had that conversation with him of like, give me a reason. You have to have a reason to want to be with this party. You should think about that. But if you haven't, I might consider sitting that player down and being like, look, this is a cooperative game. If your character doesn't have a reason to be a part of this group of players, maybe they need to move on, and maybe you need to make a character that does have a reason to be a part of this group of players, and maybe that character has to go off and be evil as an NPC or evil in some other way, and have that conversation with that player in a real way. I had to have that conversation with Steven in the Saturday group because he made Horus, which ended up having that combat, and I had to be like, look, Steven, you make fantastic characters and you're a fantastic role player. I said, but can you please try to make a character that is going to have a reason to mesh with the group that exists and be a part of it? And he said, yeah, I think I can do that. And he came up with Michael, which still creates issues within the group, but Michael at least like has a reason to stick around and be a part of that group.
Yeah, like it's not a binary. Like you don't have to necessarily go along mindlessly with every single thing that the group wants to do without question, everything like that. Obviously, your character has their own opinions and something along those lines, but ultimately the plot has to move forward, and it can't move forward if you're not on board by the end of whatever conversation you need to have, either in character or out of character, with the other players. Because if you're not on board, if you don't buy in, then I can't do anything. I can't move it. I can't proceed. And the other players aren't going to want to either, because it's going to feel like something is holding them back. And that's just not good. I've been messaged by 2 of my players so far saying that they feel kind of depleted as far as at least my Monday game is concerned, because they feel like they're not getting enough out of the other 2 players. And that's unfortunate. And now, to be fair, I take a lot of the blame as a result of being the DM. I can always conceive of things that I could be doing better to try and engage the players and try and talk to them and try and help them to become more engaging to play with as well. It's just I wasn't predicting that players who were coming to me specifically and saying, we want you to DM a game for me, were going to be this, like, I don't want to say standoffish, because it's not, they don't have a problem, like, personally. It's just a character thing. But I
disassociative.
They wouldn't make me have to work this hard to get them into a game that they wanted to play.
Right.
You know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I wasn't prepared for that, so I didn't go for that. If I knew that like they needed something to unite on from day one in order to be properly motivated, then I would just like start them off Skyrim style, like dragon attacks, boom, get the fuck out.
Yeah.
And like you need each other to live, you go, and then just have like a plot based off of that. But instead, I like to ease groups that want to play together, especially since they're all friends to one degree or another. I like to ease them into it instead and be like, all right, let's have you all just meet each other. We'll introduce you one by one, and we'll be nice and calm about it. Maybe give you a nice little quest to get you all warmed up. Things like that. That's the way that I would usually approach a group of friends who want to play a game and come to me to play a game. But if I knew that you wanted to be motivated day one to get together and be a group, and like role play wasn't going to be enough, and that you weren't just going to roll with it, then I can deal with that. I would just like to know ahead of time.
Right. All right. So what we've learned, as usual, almost every time we come back to, have a session 0 with your players. We cannot stress this enough. Have a session 0 with your players.
Absolutely.
Also, we're going to start wrapping this up because it's been 2.5 hours and my wife would like to be in the bed. So I'm going to end this on a little personal note. My 9-year-old daughter has come to me and says she wants to run a game. She wants to be a DM. And she asked me what the first thing she should do is, and my advice to her was read the player's handbook, read the DMG, read the monster manual, as if they're books. Start at page 1, read them to the end, then read the DMG page to page, read the monster manual page to page. And then step 2, do it again, and this time take notes. Because I think that, I think that especially for younger players, and the reason I said this to her, and I explained it to her, and she's pretty intelligent, is that the player's handbook is what your players are going to know. That's all the information they're technically supposed to have, right? Those are the questions they're going to ask you the most. The DMG is for all those random things that come up, like how fast does the wagon move if the horse is injured, right? You know, how fast can somebody swim while carrying their friend, right? All those little things that kind of come up. And then the monsters are, if you don't know what the monsters can do, it slows combat down to a crawl. And when combat slows down to a crawl, players lose interest. I
don't know. I think kids specifically are kind of like at their most creative. Like at the very least, like naturally speaking, you can grow creativity through a lot of different like exercises that you can do and such. But like kids in general, they still have a lot of like wonder and such within them, so they have the ability to like conceive of things that like an adult would just kind of like overlook. I think that saying you got to read these books, figure out the rules. I think that would make her, that potentially, I'm not saying this is necessarily the case, but potentially it could make her feel a lot more restricted and also potentially turn her off. It's sort of like, let's say you have a kid who's like, I want to be a surgeon when I grow up, and you just like buy like biology textbooks, and you're like, fucking read them then, and they're just like, oh, okay.
Well,
like, give them a costume first, like
Well,
let them like have a little bit of fun.
Right,
with
right.
it.
No. Well, so the thing was, is the reason I started her off was, one, she's an excellent reader because we teach reading in our household at a very, very early age. So she reads at a very high level. The other thing is she's only played one game, which I was DMing. So she's a new player and wants to run a game with mom, dad, and her brother. So that'll be easy for me. But I also want her to read the Player's Handbook because she only knows the one character she's played. So give her more information because she wanted to know more. I'm like, well, if you want to know more, read the Player's Handbook. And I have that as two ways. One, reading the Player's Handbook helps. Everybody should read the Player's Handbook regardless of who you are. And two, if she has the stick-to-itiveness to actually sit and read the Player's Handbook through, that shows me she's going to have the dedication to put in the extra time being a DM as opposed to being a player is, right?
I think personally, if it were me, now granted, I'm never going to have kids. But this is just hypothetical me. I have a kid. If it were me and I had like a 9-year-old who was just like, I want to run a game too, I'd be like, cool. What's your favorite book? Fantasy wise, do you like what sort of dragon book do you like? And like figure that out, and then be like, go write a story. Go be like, I make a story, make a world, think of things, think of places and people and objects, and have them all do stuff together. Like, because that is fundamentally a big part of DMing.
Oh, absolutely.
Is coming up with all of that stuff, and that allows them to just have some fun with it before they start getting into.
My daughter is not one who's lacked imagination. She's written several stories. Her creativity, I'm not worried about. It's comprehension of the math that's involved sometimes, and comprehension of what the interaction between how things work. And that's her biggest downside as a player, is not wanting to do the math and not wanting to.
I mean, she's 9. What do you expect?
Right. No, and that's the thing. And I don't think, to be honest, I don't think people would be comfortable with a 9-year-old DM right off the bat, unless they could. Like, for fun, yes, as an actual DM to run at least a 6-month campaign or a 3-month campaign, I think it'll be.
It's always for fun. I mean, it's their first time. I mean,
yeah, it's always for fun.
Would you do that for? You would think the same thing when it comes to anybody who's just DMing for the first time. You know, even if they are like have a somewhat comprehensive grasp of the rules, they still never DM'd before.
Right.
And there's a lot more to it than just remembering what the rules are.
Yeah,
so, like,
but you should have a basic knowledge of the game itself. What do you think, Mark?
If somebody's 30 years old and they have been playing for 10 years and they decide, I'm going to DM a game for the first time, be like, let's keep it at a one shot. That's what I would tell them.
Yeah.
So, I'm not thinking that she's going to be running any sort of long-term campaigns anytime soon.
Right. So what do you think, Mark? You have children. What's...
I do. And my children have run D&D games for me. And mostly what I've said, when they've come up to me and been like, I want to run a D&D game, I was like, well, here are all my books. Do whatever you want. That's basically what I've said. Go to town, make up whatever you want to do. If you have any questions, I'll help you. I'll do whatever you ask. And a lot of times, those games are just monsters in rooms.
Yeah.
And you run in and you fight monsters, and there's not much else to it. And that's okay.
Oh, that's
totally okay. And I'll say this as a dungeon master who's been doing this for 23 years, running D&D and other games, and who's been running 5th edition since it came out. I forget rules all the goddamn time, constantly. Forget, I don't know what every spell does. I have to have the monster stat blocks in front of me to know what they do. When I'm playing a spellcaster, I have to have the spell in front of me, and so that I know the wording. And I'm nitpicky. I want to know the exact wording of every spell,
yes.
so I usually have to read the spell when I cast it. Like I am not when it comes to knowing the rules well. I have a basic grasp of the rules, but I fall back a lot on what do you want to do? Okay, set a DC, use this skill,
Right.
and that is what I fall
Right.
back on a lot. Because that is the essence.
But you have an understanding of what.
Works.
But yes, but you do have an understanding. What I didn't.
I do.
Let me clarify something.
I'm only saying this to say that like I don't know what the best way to. When one of my kids came up to me and said, "I want to run D&D," I didn't have a clear way of knowing like what's the best way to get them started. My best way to get them started was just like go have fun with it and see if this is something you want to do, and I'll be here to answer any questions you have. But I don't know your kid.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right, right.
I don't know how she functions.
I don't want Lundy to get the misconception that I told her to go study the player's handbook. I told her to read it like a book. Like, here's something, go read it, and you'll have a better understanding of what things are, because she doesn't have an understanding of the difference between elves and dwarves. She doesn't have an understanding of between the difference between a fighter and a monk. There's no comprehension of that because she only knows the 3 characters that they have been playing. So
sure. And I'll say that I played D&D with my kids probably for probably multiple different games with my kids, different one-shots, different adventures, different things like that, different ways of playing the game, introducing it to them slowly for probably on and off for like a year or more before any of my kids were like, oh, I want to try dungeon mastering. So that's, I think there's a lot of things that are different, right? Again,
there, just as a tangential point, there is actually a like kids first TTRPG thing called No Thank You Evil. And that's a good way to get kids started on that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, very simple, very easy to pick up. And if your kid's like, I want to run something, you can be like, hey.
Well, I base this on Mark plays Magic. I don't know if the 2 of you play Magic at all. She plays Magic, and she's fairly adept at understanding the concepts between trample and instants and sorceries and things like that. So the concepts that are going to be in the player's handbook are not going to be foreign things that she won't be able to comprehend. So, like I said, she's got a good background on it. I was just stating the fact that that's the first thing that I started her technically with Magic before I started her. Well, I started her with Othello and chess. So we play chess. She plays Sudoku. So it's, we're a family of. I have to shout out to my grandpa Harry. For beating me at every game I've ever played for years on end. The man, he started at an early age teaching me the game Othello. If you've never seen that, someone with the black and the white 2-sided pieces. And you basically, if you put one on either side, it's kind of like a simplified version of Go, almost. And his thought was, you can play until you can beat me at least 50% of the time, and then we'll move to another game. And he did not cheat. He did not let me win for anything. He beat me repeatedly for months until I grasped the concepts. And then we moved on to chess. And then we moved on to Risk. And then we moved on to card games and all these other things that he just literally just crushed me at. And then I go to play with my friends and they're like, dude, how are you so good? I'm like, well, my grandpa punished me for 9 years. As a small child playing games, because his concept was, you're not going to learn if I don't play at my best. You won't get better if you don't play at your best. And I think I like to think that I bring that to D&D, where I try to play my best as either a player or a DM, and therefore I help bring up the rest of the party or bring up the party as a DM. So we're going to go to final thoughts. We'll start with Diz. Diz, any final thoughts today and your shout out?
Final thoughts. Just throwing out there, the topic we were on there. I had a player that wanted to DM, and he had played a little bit, but was still kind of a new player, and I kind of had a session in my campaign where I kind of swapped roles with him, and I played an NPC, but let him DM a session, and I was there kind of just. He kind of knew the rules a little bit, but I was there just to kind of support him just a little bit,
Yeah.
And I think that's how I would probably go after, like, if my 8-year-old wanted to run a game or something like that. Because if I give him a book and set him down, no, that's the end of it. It's game over. But, as a DM, you have to kind of crave that.
Yeah.
Because once you read the book and you know the rules, then you have to go out and read, on the internet or somewhere, about the lore of elves, and history of the elves and how they came into existence. You have to have that desire. So, and it may not be, for my 8-year-old to do that, but he might have fun doing a couple of one-off sessions, so.
Awesome.
Yeah. But final thoughts. I always enjoy hanging out with you guys. I always have lots of notes when I'm done. I used something that Mark had thrown out last time about how ending a session and stuff like that. I kind of closed it off nice and neat for them. Give them kind of a dramatic ending where the lights were fading down on them, and it was just like they had won the battle, but then all this bad stuff happened at the same time. So it was just intense happiness, and all of a sudden it was just kind of somber, and it faded away, and it was interesting.
I know exactly. Mark, you probably feel like not good at all about how today's Wednesday afternoon session ended mid combat. That's got to be a feels bad.
Yeah,
it's not ended at all. It's just
Anyway, I'm Dr. Diz _DM. Catch me this Friday at, I think we run about 10:30 p.m. Eastern for my campaign, Not Actually Heroes. It's more of a darker, it's still kind of lighter right now, but it will get into darker storytelling as we get further into it, as they kind of uncover more stuff. So, and then the following week on Saturday, I'll be running my campaign that's coming to a close. It's been going on for almost 4 years now, so we're getting very close to the end. So
Nice.
cool.
Lundy?
Big Lundy on YouTube, on Twitch, on Twitter, big_LUNDI. On Mondays, I stream on Tabor Snapping's channel at 7 p.m. to do Gods, Ghouls, and Grim, which is the game in which they are unintentionally evil. And on Thursdays, I stream on TVRNA's channel, which is the game where they're intentionally trying to be evil, but haven't really gotten there yet. I also play on Loophole's Game on Sundays and DM the Mark Knight's Game on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons now, starting next week at 1 and 1:30 p.m. respectively. And if you want to see
they're both
use...
at 1 o'clock.
They're both at 1? Okay. I thought one of them was at 1:30. My bad.
It just feels that way because we never get started on time.
That's true. If you want to see me use the Foundry app that I have been talking about basically nonstop every time that I come on here, I do DM prep sessions now on Mondays and Thursdays, where I'm just going to be doing that from noon to 6. So 6 hours of just I'm going to go ahead and set this session up. So if you want to see how Foundry looks, if you want to hang out, come by, give me a look.
Mark.
I talked enough. I play D&D a lot. If you want to come see it, just visit my channel. You'll see that I play Monday, I play Tuesday, I play twice on Wednesday, I play Friday night, I play Saturday, I do a world building stream on Saturday, and I play in a game on Sunday night. If you want to come see what I do, just stop by my Twitch channel. You'll find it. I'll probably be playing when you come over. Or
be hosting one of us that's doing it, right?
That's right. That's right. The real shout out though is we are going to be doing a charity stream on the 15th on my channel of August. So if you have a chance to come by on that day, I believe we're going to be doing a 24-hour stream. So please come by, check out what we're doing. We're going to be supporting the Trevor Project. They are an organization that supports LGBTQ people in crisis. That community, and again, they're a great charity. So come check out what we're doing there on the 15th. Hang out, maybe throw some money at a good cause.
You need to get them brackets set up.
I know. I don't know if we're doing the brackets. We're finding it's logistically difficult to pull that off. So I'll let you know what we're going to do for sure when we have a meeting and decide. But
Well, you could just DM all six games of all 6 of your games in a row.
Oh yeah, that would be no. No, I'm not DMing for 24 hours straight. I'm not doing
24-hour stream.
Yeah.
Well, tell you what. I'll give you a break of DM. I'll give you a break as a DM for about 5 or 6 hours, while I take over and you can play.
I was talking today, and I'm thinking that maybe inviting DMs from other channels to come and volunteer some time to DM like a couple-hour-long one-shot over the course of that 24-hour period, or maybe do like a 2-3 hour one-shot and do some mini games, mini like one-shot adventures over the course of the 24 hours, and having a bunch of other DMs involved who are willing to volunteer their time for a good cause. I think that would be a fun way to do it, and just have maybe some pre-made characters and an adventure prepped and ready to go, and maybe even just we'll see how we can figure out players and throw that all together. That might end up being the best way to go about it, and maybe give opportunity for people who don't get to play, or something like that. We'll see.
You can do You can do the Lost Minds and just have the next group that comes in just take over the characters, the new DM and the new characters, and just have the same adventure. Just roll it from player to player to player, and how they take over and change the characters from like a game of telephone, and see where the characters end up at the end of 24 hours.
Oh my god, that would be such chaos.
But it seems fun though, doesn't it? It's like, look, here's your bard druid. Have fun. Okay. All right, everyone. I am Rick. I am the Loophole King. That is the _loophole_king. For those of you who are trying to find me on Twitch and YouTube and all the other places. I want to thank everyone again. You guys are great. I appreciate DMs coming in and spending their time. Like I said, I've been getting some really good feedback from newer DMs and older DMs that they've taken to heart a lot of what we've done, and implemented a lot of ideas that we've tossed out. So I'm proud of the stream right now. I'm proud of the product we're putting out at the moment. We're getting views on YouTube. We're getting good views on YouTube starting now. So I'm really happy about that. I want to thank you, the viewer, the viewer, for supporting us and everyone else. If you'd like to support the stream, don't forget you can use your Amazon Prime subscription to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. You can make donations personally if you'd like to help out the stream, either through the donation button down there or join us at Patreon at patreon.com. You can also visit us at Comic Book World at comicbookworld.com. Visit our sponsor. Like I said, we hit our 50 subscribers. We made affiliate on Sunday, so I'm now in the process. I picked up these small box of minis. It's the Mordenkainen's box, the new boxes that came out for the Mordenkainen's minis. I picked that up today, so I believe we'll do that at the beginning of the stream on Sunday. We'll go ahead and do that raffle off so we can get that taken care of, so we have some viewers there. Also, please remember, visit our sister sites, visit Big Wendian, all of his sites, visit Mark over his, visit Dr. Diz. Don't forget to see, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
There's an emote firework in the channel. You should have went perfect. I don't know why I didn't do that. Well, I probably did it somewhere. Please go over and visit the Nat Awesomes, the Nat 30s. Check out all of our friends. Don't forget to stop by the wonderful people over at Parboco. They've been, I've been on their Discord lately. They've been great people. Like we always say, visit your local gaming store. Participate at your local gaming store. Find out what they have to offer. Buy their products. If you can buy products from them, support your local gaming store as opposed to the big box stores. I don't have any problem with you buying stuff from Amazon if that's easier for you, but I would, your local gaming store, the mom and pop stores really need your help during this time, and it goes to help build our community. And I have one more charity. Like I said, if you go down below, you can see the charity box for Extra Life. Extra Life is a charity that donates all their money to the Children's Miracle Network, which is the children's hospitals across the country. This one is specifically for Cincinnati Children's Hospital here in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, greater Cincinnati, Ohio area. They've taken care of both of my two oldest children who spent multiple weeks in the hospital due to illnesses and premature birth. And my friend has a child that has to see them once every 2 weeks. They take care of them. They work almost entirely off of donations, kind of like the Shriners. So please, $1, $2, $5, $10, whatever you want to donate. We're trying to raise $1,000 for them. Please, please donate what you can. That being said, Mark, you want to go ahead and say it?
Oh yeah, like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification button if you're watching on YouTube. This way you can be updated whenever this comes on to YouTube.
Thank you. And like I said, I am Rick. I am the Loophole King, and signing off from the Dark Side of the Moon here in the Blue Cheese Room. This has been DMs After Dark. Thank you so much, and we will see you on Sunday.